Good evening, Barbados. Good evening, Caribbean. This is Marcia Weeks, and you are watching the Marcia Weeks Show. We're coming to you live from beautiful Barbados, and it is Valentine's night. We want to say happy Valentine's if you're into all of that, because you know what? It's all about love. We're on this show because we love Barbados. We love Barbados, and over the it's about 7 months now, or 7.5 months, we have been exhibiting our love and patriotism to Barbados as we seek to preserve democracy. And we're doing that by agitating, we are mobilizing, we are motivating, we're doing all of these things on the Marcia Week Show. And I want to thank you for joining. And I have to go through and start to thank and welcome my lovely guests who are on. I'm calling you my guests because we do the show together. Oh, Born Again. Were you the first one? I don't think Born Again was the first one. Loyal Daughter 66 was the first to be on this evening at 5:53. Welcome. She says good night. Good night, loyal opposition. Keep on keeping on as you log on. Hit that like button and share. That's it. Hit the like button and share. And we come together to preserve democracy. Preserve democracy. And that is what is happening. That is what we're seeing taking place in our midst. Yes. Born Again, welcome. Ramim, welcome. Welcome. I see the general is even here. He's early and we want to get him on early because I know he has a lot to talk about. Mervin, Tracy, but I have to big you all up. I have to mention your names, man. Marlene, Kathy Stout, Diana Seeley, Gelbiz. Good night. Erwin Nurse. This is going to be an amazing show. You hear what I tell you? This is going to be amazing. Listen, we are in the season of change, Trevor Seeley. We are in a season of change. Change is here. Change is here. We have been fighting and pushing, and we're seeing change. Change is here. Our grandparents must be so proud of us today. Yes, we are speaking up. Llewellyn, I feel great to have you, Raycon, Raekwon, Hasbro, Sir Alfred Benjamin from Brooklyn, NYC, Emerson Bob, hi Emerson from the UK, wonderful, Pete Way, Stefano. Oh, welcome, Easy D, welcome. It's always good to have you, Easy D. Diana Rogers, Pauline Maynard, Marcia, my namesake. Welcome. You are part of this show. Your comments are very, very important. We got, so many ideas that were implemented because we are not just a talk shop. This is not a talk shop, And when Mr. Franklin comes on, you see, this is no talk shop. This is action all the way. Bajan Brit. Hello, Kamar. Hey, CG. Welcome, CG. Guess what? Those honors that you have prepared at Unity Workers Union, we're going to need them again this Sunday. Okay. On this Sunday, we're going to need them again. I think Mr. Franklin is getting ready there. We're going to need them again on this Sunday. Okay, as we put them through the car windows. Right, once the police will allow that, we're going to have our placards. They're going to be, on the truck. Mr. Nigel Newton. Hello. Hope you can be on with us on Friday night. Sonia Perch. Good night. Beverly Prescott, NG. Yes. Okay, we're hearing good night, Mr. Franklin. We're hearing something coming through. Yes, something was coming through. Okay, Beverly Prescott, Rose. Hi, Rose. I think we met yesterday. I'm not sure. Okay, that's a different Rose. Callie B, C. Harewood, Wayne McCaustin. Listen, Mr. Franklin, I have to mention my people here. Yes, Elaine. Yes, Trevor. Trevor saying change is here indeed. It is here. It is here. It is here. Ricardo Knight and Gillian Allen, Judith and Clark. Welcome, welcome, Sugarcane King, Mr. Glyne Griffith. Good night. Good night, Tyrone Nurse. Listen, Bajans not waking up. Bajans up. They're up, they're wide awake, Mr. Franklin. They're becoming watchmen for their watchers over this nation. Yes, easy to say so. Everybody yesterday, except Caswell. Caswell was, you saw here why Caswell wasn't there. Fabian, Dighton Griffith, Edwin Price. Oh my goodness, Edwin. Springtime, Fabian Yard. Welcome, welcome to everybody. Michael Bellamy, Mystic Angel. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please share, everybody. And we want to definitely welcome Mr. Caswell Franklin, the General. The General. Welcome, sir.
Good night, Marcia, and good night to everyone on the show. It's indeed a pleasure to be here again tonight. This is becoming one of my favorite places to be. You know, I couldn't join you at the Ralph Thorne grand entrance into Parliament because I was on striking. We had
Yes.
a 2 day strike at the Barbados Revenue Authority, and then we had the
But let me
strike,
tell the
and
people that I was on the phone with you and you were letting me know, how to position ourselves. I'd never done anything like that before. And you were giving us guidance on the phone and also telling us, when it was going to happen, when such and such was going to arrive. So I
yeah,
want to thank
because
you
I
so
was
much for
I was in contact with people who know people who know people, so I would be able to tell you when and where. So I figured that's the least I could do, you know. So to make
yes,
sure it went off well. We don't want him to get there and not find the body, because you see what happened. He would have walked in like a lonely fellow out there, and it would have been. It's disheartening to know now that at a momentous occasion like that, and you don't have the support, even though you might have the people out there behind you, you won't see it.
yes,
You won't see it. I know he isn't relying on us for that support, but I know we feel good with it. So I'm glad that I played some part, but I wish I could have played a greater one. But I had too many irons in the fire, yeah, and
yes, yes. Well, yes. Well, go ahead and tell us about that. And we will always after we're going to talk about Mr. Thorne a little later. When others come on, Mr. McLean is coming on at 8, so we will talk some more about that. And we also have Mr. Glyne Murray is going to come on, and he is going to look at both Mr. Mr. Tony, Mr. Thorne, Ralph Thorne, I'm sorry, and also Reverend Atherley, who they both crossed the floor. So he's going to do some kind of comparison there a little later. So we're going to talk more about that. But can you go right into what's happening with Unity Workers and BRA?
in October last year, we wrote to the Barbados Revenue Authority requesting joint recognition with the NUPW. We have more members at BRA than any other union. We are the most representative union at BRA. But they choose to ignore that fact, and they don't want to establish that fact. So
Mm-hmm,
we wrote to them and we said, well, we have, at that time we had 95 members. It's now
mm-hmm,
107. But back
mm-hmm,
then it was 95. And you believe we got less than 80. And they have been accorded all the rights. And their workers can be represented, and they don't want to acknowledge Unity Workers Union. The problem here is that NUPW is on the board in this person of Richard Green, the General Secretary. So we are asking Richard Green basically to recognize another union other than his. So I
mm-hmm.
think he would have a problem with that. At which point he should recuse himself and say, I can't get in that. Because we are more represented than him. And what is also fundamental, the, the legislation provides that the most representative union should have a seat.
Mm-hmm.
When NUPW was the most representative union, over the years, NUPW would pick a retired officer that who has knowledge of the bra operations, taxes, and that kind of stuff, so that he would be able to make some sort of input on behalf of the workers.
Right.
Now we have a situation now where the general secretary, I don't know why he thinks that he should be on the board, because then he's going to be putting himself as a judge and a representative in the same case. And if he is not even conducting the case, his juniors, the people
Mm-hmm.
that are junior to him, will have to conduct that case. So it is highly irregular and improper for him to be on the board and also have his staff representing the workers. And the workers
Right.
were angry that they can't get NUPW to do anything for them. After all, the NUPW know if they go to the BRA meeting to represent a person at BRA, they are going to be fighting against their general secretary. So you see how you see where the problem lies.
Yes. Conflict. There's a
And
conflict of interest.
yes, and Brad likes it that way because then Brad got him there, and even if he is the most decent fellow in the world, it will not appear to be fair. And all you
Yes.
want is the appearance of bias. The courts over the years have told it doesn't necessarily have to be biased. It's just the appearance of bias is enough to
Mm-hmm.
pick up anything that you're doing, just the appearance. Well, this must be the appearance of bias. If you can have a man acting in two roles, one as the employer and one as the employee's representative. That, mind you, and they just reappointed um, him to the board just recently when they
Yes.
had knowledge that that Unity Workers Union have the most um, persons, probably the most representative union. But they don't want me in there, and they understand that. Trust me, I understand that all of that. And I don't want to sit on the board. I don't, because
Yes.
then I can't go and play the case in front of my own board,
Right. I mean,
right?
he should know. He should know. He shouldn't sit on that board either.
But it shouldn't. It shouldn't. It is improper. Over the years, we had persons, well, and if was given a seat on a board, that the council would always pick somebody from among the membership, even a retired officer, to do that. Now these people, you see, the president of the NUPW is on the severance payments thing, has no knowledge of severance payments whatsoever. Had none before she got on there. She might pick up a few little things now. But mind you, it can't be much because the severance payments tribunals have not been meeting. So she ain't gonna be learning anything. And you don't join the severance payments tribunal to learn. You join to make decisions. And you can't be learning. It is not a job that you can learn that you can learn, because when you are learning, you might be messing up somebody who comes for severance payments. And because you don't know what to do, you can be bamboozled, especially if it is a contentious matter where the employer is resisting. But they like the stipend. You get a little stipend, so that's probably a good reason for staying on these boards. They should not be there. They have no knowledge of the area and they have no experience in it. Yeah, anyhow, we wrote to them, and they did not acknowledge our letter. We wrote to them and we said we have 795 people. And then this in December, this is October 23rd, and late December, the the human resource, well, they don't call it human resource, they call it um, human capital. See, they manage human capital. Call and ask. You actually want a list of the people who are members of Unity that work at BRA. I said, that is none of your business. She took offense. I wasn't trying to be offensive. I was just trying to tell her, well, maybe how I coach my language. I said, it is not for her to find out that. If you want to know, the practice in Barbados is if a union claims recognition, and you for some reason doubt the union's word, you go to the labor department. The chief labor officer there will deploy officers to come into your union and ask for the application forms and evidence that the people are paying dues. And once that is established, then they will write back and say, well, this is our finding. They do not have to know because they might want to victimize. And they have been doing that with a
Right.
lot of people in there. So a lot of people they pay at the bank, they do wire transfers and all kind of stuff to pay. Some ain't care. I said, but take out my salary. I care what them know. But others are a bit more timid, and they pay their dues.
Yes.
So all I'm saying to you is, if you doubt me, you doubt my veracity. Say as is the practice in Barbados, go to the Labor Department because we have a lot of outstanding issues at BRA that will not go away because BRA is probably one of the worst employers in Barbados now. They treat their staff like dirt. That is why you can have a Christmas party for 340 people and only 70 turn up. The staff don't have nothing to do with them. That is the situation because you can't treat me badly for 365 days a year and then one day you come and say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we love you. It doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the staff did not turn up. As a matter of fact, I told the people in Unity, if you go, keep the Jews because it don't make no sense. You know, I prefer the membership, but I don't want people who are that silly to be associated with who basically the enemy because they have set up themselves as the enemy of the workers in BRA. I'll give you
Right.
some examples. I'll give you some examples to show you how they treat people. The messenger took some money orders to the post office for the post office to pay back. Because what happens if you live overseas and you own property in Barbados, you would pay your taxes by money order, postal
Right.
order. So the post office then would verify that it is a good money order and send the money. Well, in this case, they gave the postal orders to the messenger so that he can negotiate with the post office, and then the post office will write you a check for the amount that they verified.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What transpired this day was that the post office did not verify all, so they did not pay all,
Right.
right? And they fired the messenger for stealing the money. And
Right. I
then,
remember you telling us about that.
and then subsequently, the post office then sent up the remaining money that had thing, but they already fired the man. The decent thing to do is to say, we are sorry we made a mistake, forgive us or whatever. No, they are saying to him, no, we will pay you out. This is a man who has a mortgage that he has to pay. And these hooligans, and they call them hooligans, writing to him to say to him, okay, we'll pay you, but you can't come back. Well, they made a mistake. It was their fault. The man was 100% honest. And you fire some person in error and do not want to change your error. So we have that pending now before the Employment Rights Tribunal, at the Labor Department rather, on its way to the tribunal because BRA is insisting, oh, we can pay you out. They are hooligans. You don't treat people like that, especially a man who is innocent. You made a mistake. They made a mistake. They wrongfully accused him of stealing. Then when the money turned up, they had the heart to say, oops, we make a mistake, sorry. And they insisted that he can't come back. That is one of the things that we have to deal with them. Along, in addition to the recognition issue. Then we have another situation where you have auditors. The post of auditor, they got called auditor one, auditor two. But
Mm-hmm.
in the public service, there's something called bracketing. The two posts, you move from one post into the next. Then you
Mm-hmm.
reach a particular, then you get to the top of the two scale, you go on to one after 5 years. People have been there for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and these people refuse to give them the increase in salary that they are legally entitled to. But they would bring people from outside and ask these same auditors that work in the bar to train them and then make them ones before the people who train them. I am training you. That means I must know what I'm doing. But and I train you, and you're good enough to become more senior to me within days. But they come from a certain accounting firm. I will not call the accounting firm's name, but some of them come from the accounting firm that the revenue commission to work at. And I have a difficulty with that. They turn around and they made another man redundant. First of all, the revenue authority has no authority to make anybody redundant, and certainly not an officer that came over from the public service. But they made him redundant, change the name of his job, and get to somebody else, and think that is redundancy. They're dumb. So right now, we're not going to take that matter to the tribunal because the tribunals are fidgety, a bit skin-flatish. They don't like this, tight-fisted. So we're going to take it to court and let the court decide that you send home this man 12 years ahead of time, and you're going to pay for them 12 years. He's entitled to a pension. When you are dismissed from the public service, you don't get the pension. So he will lose his pension if he lives to 90. You don't get any. So we're going to ask in the court to give him compensation for what he has lost. He has lost significantly. These are just some of the issues, along with what the people call Johnny Apostles down on the Bird Street location. When you go, if you work about the evening, Johnny Apostles come on and stretch the legs all over the place. And they expect people, today now, the first time they come to see them about Johnny Apostles because we protest about it. But people are calling and quarreling about it all the time, and they don't know anything about it. They don't care. Right? So we decided to take industrial action. And then we wrote to them and we said, well, look, we had preferred that this would be handled amicably, but you don't want to be amicable. So we will, without any further reference to you, take industrial action. And we started yesterday.
So the industrial action started yesterday.
Yesterday.
And what is the because I think Easy D is asking what actions are the union taking in this wrongful dismissal. So the wrongful dismissal is just one of the issues, right? Right, Miss Franklin?
Yes. The wrongful dismissal is just one of the issues. But what we were trying to do is to persuade them to undo their nastiness. Now, having not done so, we have filed the matter before the Employment Rights Tribunal. So that the tribunal then would determine, because the tribunal is empowered to order reinstatement or re-engagement.
Okay.
Reinstatement is if you get back the same job, you go back to the same job. Re-engagement means they hire you back. They might not give you that, instead give you back the same job, but your salary can come down and that kind of stuff. But you can be, so that is reinstatement or re-engagement. So the tribunal has that power. The courts don't order re-engagement or reinstatement; they order compensation. But this is how my mind works. If you dismiss somebody wrongfully, and the body is willing to come back and work, especially when Brad don't belong to none of them. Brad don't belong to anybody who works there. I can understand if you dismiss somebody from your household that cook for you, and you can't get reinstatement because they come back and poison you. But he doesn't have. All of them are employees, All of them work for the government, so they can't hold to any particular position saying, "Well, look, we can't work him." No. If you can't work, go home, because it's you who did the wrong, not him. So the courts usually would pay compensation. But if you get compensation, let's say it's a lump sum. Let me use a few figures to demonstrate what we're talking about. If you work for $2,000 a month, at the end of the month, you end up spending $2,300. So if they give you $10,000 in compensation, that is not going to last 5 months. Because in 3 months, that's gone. All right? So you don't want to get some money, live big for the 3 months, and then you got to look for work. Especially when you did. I can understand the situation if he had done something wrong and they say, you know, so maybe we can't retain him in here. But they know, beyond any doubt whatsoever, that the man committed no offense. But you got some arrogant people who feel that because a man might be at a level that below them, that they can treat him like that and get away with it. They're too arrogant. And I suspect it is this arrogant BLP behavior that they come up with, because the BLP staff and the people inside there too, you know. So this matter should, as a matter of fact, I am certain that the guy who pretends to be Minister of Finance should know about this. And then he should take action to undo the damage that his board did. But not really his board, because he's only a pretend minister. He's not a real minister, you know what I mean? No, he's not. The Prime Minister is the minister.
He's the minister
he's a
in the
minister in
ministry.
her ministry, which don't exist in our law, but
Right.
a lot of things exist in our law and they don't even in our practices. I can give you one that why I'm saying this. Over the years, this is not a law, no, this has been a practice going on for the last 50 years. That when you're seeking recognition, you should have 50% plus one. Well, over time they have said, they're now saying a substantial number. Right? In the hotel situation now with that is going on, where they're trying to legislate for a Barbados Workers Union to be accepted. Barbados Workers Union has 434 members in the hotel sector out of 14,000. That cannot be a significant number. So it's certainly not 50% plus one. And certainly it cannot be a significant number. 410 and 14,000, it cannot be significant. So government is moving. And I hear ministers standing up and saying things that they should be ashamed to say. Because what they were saying, some of it I know to be not truthful. Let them sue me too. I will take another thing on my tail. What they are saying, and what bothers me, is that they know. They were at the meetings when the hotel people asked for Caswell Franklin. I wasn't there. And they give a lot of foolish excuses and try to blacken me, because some hotel properties told them that the only body represent anybody on their staff is Caswell. They don't have a CBWU because the people don't want them. One person, I understand it wasn't there, but 3 people at that meeting told me that a person represented me, and she didn't even call me and tell me that she represented me, but everybody else was telling me that she did. Apparently, when they were cussing me, she told them, you don't know Mr. Franklin. Mr. Franklin is a decent man. When he comes to the hotel and the workers wrong, he just beg and he said, man, how we can fix this? He said, but when he right, he's fight like hell. And that's true. I feel wrong, you don't be wrong and strong, you know. The only thing to be wrong and strong is this government. And so I go and if my workers are wrong, I tell them. And I said, look, you need to apologize and let me get this thing fixed. Because I'm not going in there and arguing that you are right when I know that you are wrong. And sometimes I lose members over it. Because a guy came to me one day and he said he want me to represent him. And he took out half a document and said, no, don't show me documents yet. Tell me what happened. And he gave me a version of what happened to him. And I said, but you know, if you're working with me, I've already do, you know. He said, what you say? I said, you, by your own words, but everything that you told me said that you were wrong. Let's go up there and say to the people, I make a mistake, I is sorry, and hope for the best. All right? Man, you won't sell me out. I said, no, I'm not trying to sell you. I'm going to be honest with you. I cannot win on the facts that you gave me. I am not even seeing the allegations that the employer made. I am only hearing what you told me. And what you told me, you were absolutely wrong. So he fired me. He went to get the other union. I called my friend up there and I asked, what happened to the case? And they told me, the people said if he'd come in here and shown any remorse, they would have given him a break. They dismissed him. But that's what I told him to do. because you're a trade unionist, that doesn't make you always right. And
Mm-hmm.
because you represent as a person, that doesn't mean he's right. Sometimes you have to be able to say to a worker, man, you're wrong. Fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Yeah.
wait for the case to come up. Go and say sorry. But people don't like to hear that, you know. I find, and I've found, I have never had a situation where a worker walk into a meeting and say, I am sorry, I made a mistake, I think it happened again, and the people get vexed and still fire. I've not seen it. It's not in my experience. So it works. You're going there and
Right.
you're sure that, and sometimes they're genuine mistakes, but it's a mistake nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So the government, this government, rather than try to be fair to the workers and the unions and the employers, because they must be fair to the employers and the employees.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a bias toward the Barbados Workers Union because the Barbados Workers Union General Secretary is a member of Parliament in the Barbados Labour Party. And I have a clip from the CBC News, I think it was around the 14th or 15th of December last year, where she was telling them that this is what the government will do to enforce her collective agreement. A collective agreement is an agreement between the union and the workers.
Mm-hmm.
It is not normally is not binding in law. It is binding in honor. And when the employer breaches the collective agreement, you strike. Barbados Workers Union does not have enough people to call a strike at one hotel violence all of them. All right? So they are asking the government to legislate for them to make them relevant. No, to become relevant, what you need to do is go and do the work that the people were paying you to do. You were not doing it and they left. So you cannot now get the government to come and force in the situation. And they're talking about minimum standards for hotels and no. Why not minimum standards for the entire working population of Barbados? To say that if you are employed in Barbados and you want you're an employer, you must employ people under these or better terms. But nevertheless, why only the hotels? Because the hotels got 14,000 people and BW want 14,000 times 26. That is where the problem comes.
Right.
And we have a parliament that sits down and try to mislead the public. Now, if they want to be fair to workers, why would the same government have prison officers working since in COVID time, 12-hour shifts, and only paying them for 8? Will
Wow.
not pay them overtime.
And it's still going on because I've heard you talk about that.
It's still going on. It's still going on to this day. And when we agitate, they don't come up with this thing for them to say, okay, we will give them 8 hours a month or over as the overtime.
Mm-hmm.
8 hours. When you're working 4 hours a day. So in 2 days you got the amount of money the government will pay you for a month. As a matter of fact, it's not even then because overtime is time and a half. And they want you 8 hours at time. So and they are saying they're looking out for the workers. They're not looking for the body. So fix your problems first. Set an example for the other employers to follow. You are not right now. We have a situation. Only yesterday, a lady came to my office. She is working in the public service.
Mm-hmm.
She got sick as a result of the conditions in the building where she worked. And she had to take sick leave. When she comes back to work, she gets better as she comes back to work within hours, she's sick again in the environment. Their solution is to send her home medically unfit. And don't pay her. Because when you are a public officer, you are entitled to sick leave on full pay. What they have been doing to workers now, they have been giving you sick leave on full pay for a particular period, and then after a time they say it's on half pay, and then on no pay. There is nothing in the laws of Barbados that allows the government to pay anybody half pay while they're on sick leave or no pay while they're on sick leave. The general orders speak to it. But they ignore the general orders. These general orders have the
This is the
force of
same
law.
government.
This
That
is
is
the
the
same
same
government.
government that talking about in Parliament yesterday, talking about workers and looking out for workers and all these different things. And there's so many. I've listened to you, on these shows. We talk about the prison workers and how they're treated. They seem to be the worst employers in this country. But at the same time, I listened to them yesterday talking about, protecting the rights of workers and so on. I think the first thing that they have to do is to follow the law.
They are not protecting the rights of workers. They are protecting the revenue of Barbados Workers Union. That is what
Hmm.
their intent of this bill. And Tony Moore said it. I have the clip. I can send it to you if you want. That came on the CBC News. She was telling the workers at the union, she had a meeting with the workers, to try to tell them what they are doing for them. Yes, I know some of the things they're saying are true. Because, like the service charge. And what galls me is Ian Gooden Edgell had, I don't know, I don't want to curse him. I try not to. He said in the House that people were getting service charge and all kind of stuff. The hotel where he was human resource director seized the workers' service charge to pay a tax that the government imposed. I complained about it when it was in the Senate. Nobody knew anything about it. I know he's in there talking about unfair workers and stuff. Let me tell you what I'm talking about, because people can think I'm talking madness. You know, some time ago, the government took raised the hotel service charge, and what had happened, and they did it almost immediately. But people don't book their holidays the day before they come down. They book and they pay for them months in advance. So the service charge at the lower rate was paid by the visitor. The hotel decided, well, we can't go back to those visitors and say, well, the government raised the tax, so we want it. We want the additional tax for you to pay. So they took it from the workers. They
Wow.
took it out the
And
service charge of the workers.
and this Ian Gooding Edgell,
Hmm.
who was speaking in Parliament yesterday, is the Minister of Tourism.
The Minister of Tourism. And he should have shut
And
up.
so he was the human resource
Director.
director for which hotel? Can you say the hotel?
Elegant Group.
Repeat.
The Elegant Group. The group
The
that did
elegant,
this. They did this to their workers.
the
And some
elegant.
hotels, yeah, some hotels take the service charge and pay general managers and all kind of things, but who don't do any service. The service charge is supposed to be paid to the people who provide the service. And it works in a system like this. If you, let's say the service charge is 10%, that 10% goes into a pool, and this pool now pay the people who do actually service. So the people at the bottom, at the salary level, thing like the bears and the masters and stuff, and gardeners who don't work directly with the visitors, they get a higher percentage of the service charge. That will bring up their salary. But the waiters and waitresses who get tips,
Yeah.
because they get tips, sometimes they can get as much tips as more than their salary at the end of the month. So, but then the cooks who are there slaving over the stove, they don't get tips. So the service charge will get more points. But it does not stretch all the way up to management, and it certainly does not stretch all the way to breakage. If a plate drop and break, they take up the service charge. This is what some hotels do. So I have no difficulty with them, the best workers union, speaking up about these issues, because they are truthful and they are facts, right? But don't come out and give me this kind of thing. Another thing with the tips: some hotel properties and some restaurants, you are a nice waitress and you come out there a nice waiter, you come out there and you smile with the guests good, and you um feel like giving them a little gratuity for their service, this personal service that they give you. And what the hotels do If you take that, you are dismissed. You got to take the tip that the employer, that the guest give you, and hand it to the boss for the boss to pull them and help pay yourself and everybody else with it,
Wow.
which is dishonest because tipping tipping is something that started in the United States, and it started in the time when you had the after slavery was abolished out there. They allowed the black people to work on the trains, but they did it for free, and they would get tips. So you would see a fella come, yes, master, and that kind of stuff, and treat you good because you want more tips.
Mm.
So the tipping is traditionally for the person who gives the good service. I have been to restaurants overseas, and the fella that treat me bad, I put 1 penny on the table and said, "That's your tip," to let them know that I ain't satisfied with the service. But what these people do, they pull the tips like it's theirs. And I have actually had a situation where I had to go and represent somebody because they said the boy thief the tips. No, the boy thieving the tips are the employers, the
Mm.
owners of the thing. And they are supposed to pay the workers and pay a proper wage. They should be relying on the guests out there to prop up their payroll. And some of them keep it. They take it, and then you can't get the tips that you collect. So those are things that we need to talk about. But what we don't need to talk about is the government treating its workers badly and then seeking to go and treat a group of hotel workers, not the entire set of workers in Barbados. Just
Mhm.
the group of hotel workers, because there are 14,000 hotel workers and BW want them. But if you want those workers, you should go there and convince them that I'm a changed man and my union change and we can go and treat you good this time. You don't get the government to pass a stupid law that deprives people of their property. Because this law, Ralph said it yesterday and I concur with him, is going to be deprive people of their property without due process of law. And then you can say, but I'm going to take their property from you. And then if you don't like it, you can go to a tribunal. You can go to the Barbados Revenue Authority Appeals Tribunal. But this ain't got nothing to do with Barbados Revenue Authority. So why you put it there? You know? And the thing is, you are saying to them, if you breach the law, the Holidays Repair Act that they're complaining about, that the same Glenn talked about, because I was taking notes in the car when he was on my way home the evening, because I actually had to listen to it after, because I had meetings, as I told you. He is saying that some people don't pay the correct amount of holidays we pay. All right? And they want us to say they'll take away the concessions if they don't do that. No, they're taking away the concessions for Barbados Workers Union to get membership. Nothing to do with people not receiving their holidays with pay, because one of the offenses under the Holidays with Pay Act. Let me read some of them for you, because some of them will make sense if we read them because they're going to refer to particular sections. But it says an employer who A. refuses to allow an employee to take an annual holiday to which he is entitled under this act. B. gives an employee less annual holiday than the annual holiday to which the employee is entitled, right? Fails to pay the employee, let's see though, fails to pay the employee the average pay or part thereof to which he is entitled in respect of his annual holiday or part thereof in accordance with the provisions of this act, right? And they have some others, but it says the employer is guilty of an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $10,000 or to imprisonment for a term of 1 year or to both. Now you have a situation where an employer, if he fails to comply with this act, he
Mhm.
could go jail for a year and pay $10,000. You want more? You need a minister now to come and say we will take your concessions. Look, yeah, that's what the law provides for. I am making this up. This is the Holidays Repair Act.
So,
I read it to
Mr.
you.
Franklin, I want to ask. So now with this new law, is this new law going to supersede what you just read there in the Employment Act? or is it that both things, they're going to take the concession and then they're also going to apply that
They are
that
separate and
ruling to the situation?
they are separate and distinct. This law says that if you fail to do these things, you can go before a magistrate, a summary conviction. You go before a magistrate and you could be
Mhm.
fined up to $10,000 or a year in jail or both.
Right.
They are saying now, same thing, get another said in the house yesterday, that if you fail to pay the annual holiday or don't pay the amount of annual holiday, they want to be able to take away your concessions. Now, cut there. You want to try a man twice? Even if he's a rogue employer, you should only be dealing with him
Oh.
once. So, and mind you, this not is even a trial because there's no provision for a trial with the minister. With this new act, the minister
Mhm.
will make that decision on his own and then say, "Well, you're going to appeal if you like." That is not fair.
Mhm.
And mind you, it is not intended for employers. Like, I'm going to repeat myself. Why should the government legislate for one segment of the working population to get better conditions of work, but not for all the rest of them? They only represent them? No, they represent them because they want to push the Barbados Workers Union. Because the people in charge of the Barbados Workers Union over the last few years have actually emasculated it, destroyed it, done everything. In 1984, the Barbados Workers Union had 25,000 members. Today, they can't find 6,000. So this is the way of the
Wow.
government trying to push the union uh, to get to make sure they have revenue. Mind you, they already give them a little bit of stipend and a roundabout method because they give them a stipend, but they do not put it in the estimates for in an obvious way. They
Mhm.
give the money, they put it in the Ministry of Labor's um, estimates, and then they label it grants to institutions. So when those grants go to NUPW or one go to BWU, so nobody knows that the government is propping them up.
Right. So
You see,
your union is not eligible to get any of those grants?
my union don't want them because
Mhm.
if you are in a union, you should live on your own resources. You should not be seeking anything from the employer because the employer is now paying the piper and he will be calling the tune. The employer will
Mhm.
never call the tune at Unity as long as I am there. So
Ah.
if the members want certain conditions, then they must be willing to pay for them. Unions should not be out there mendicant. And then you have like, but you see, we got a restaurant in Barbados who is probably one of the worst employers, but they give BW food when they have functions. So that staff is treated very badly.
Mhm.
And the union don't ever fight for those workers. So much so now that one of the union officers left the union and gone over there to be their human resource manager or what they call them. Or human. That is
Big
what.
conflict of interest, and that's what's happening with the workers here in Barbados. It's no wonder that the Unity Workers Union, I think it was 76% of Barbadians
No,
voted
no, no, no. 73. I don't want to take away anything.
73,
73.3. Don't forget my point
73.3.
three. I don't.
Yeah, this is the Unity Workers Union is there. 73.3% of Barbadians voted that the Unity Workers Union is the union that they believe that they can trust. It's the union that they believe that will fight for them. And that's what's happening right now with bra workers. And so can you tell us a little bit more about the strike itself and how long is it going to be?
Well, it was supposed to be 2 days. the people at Warren, they came out yesterday. So they were, most of them were not at work,
Mm-hmm.
and today they were still supposed to be out, but I think they misunderstood and they didn't come down to the little demonstration that we had because I didn't see them. Mind you, they were not at work, so they probably got mixed up and they didn't come down. But
Mm-hmm.
even today, then they start to address the Johnny Apostle issue that was going on for the longest time. They call Johnny
You're
Apostle
getting some
The German
results.
Rogers.
You're getting some results from the government. You're seeing some movement.
Well, they met with the staff and talked to them and they probably spraying the place or whatever they can do. No, but we should not have to strike or to sick out or anything to get government to do basic cleaning
Mm-hmm.
or to provide a safe place of work and a safe system of work because that is required by law. The Safety and Health at Work Act and also the common law require you to give people a decent place to work. But all over the public service, look at every day at school, coming up there with all kinds of things. And mind you, I understand why the teachers are striking now, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of school was off too, but a lot of people didn't mention about that. But teacher at law school died, and they understand that before they died, they had the test to find that kind of mold in the lungs. That but they're saying there's not a connection. It's the same mold that they got up there in the body lung. The person died. So I think that's what had the teachers frightened.
Oh wow.
And they did a lot of cleaning and stuff up there, but they didn't clean it good enough because a teacher made some marks. Teachers like chalk, and they said they bring these professional cleaners and stuff, and make some marks in the dust, and come back and find the chalk still there. Because the government is called the friends, not necessarily people who know what they're doing. So the teachers said, this is going to be done better. Because they're frightened for their lives now.
Right.
Because they actually have instances where people have died. A lot of teachers and people are sick. A lot of teachers and nurses are sick. A lot of people in government offices are sick. Sick based because of the conditions they're working. When they go home, they're good. Come to work. Today I said to some workers at the meeting with me, because we had some down, and they said to me something, when you come here upon the morning, your stomach don't hurt you? Someone said, I almost all don't have it. But it don't hurt them till they get down there. Because the stress and the tension of having to work for these people, it is hard for people to be shouting at you and cursing you and telling you all kind of bad things. And you got to take it because somebody can tell you they got the Prime Minister ear. I don't care if they got your foot. You can't treat people that way. And I will not allow you to treat people that way if the person is a member of my union.
Mm-hmm.
I can do something about it. Some
Yes.
loyal daughters say a lot of teachers sick and the MOE doing nothing about it. You know? That is a fact. I don't know if they know what to do, or they don't care, or they don't want to provide the resources to do it. Because we can find resources as well too, but all these consultants, and you can find resources to pay a couple of extra maids or pay people to do industrial cleaning. At least when you find that there's a situation once a quarter or something like that. This government has been the worst government that Barbados had since the abolition of slavery, and they still treat the people like they're slaves. And you expect people to just sit down and take it all along. When you see your colleagues getting sick and dying, and then
Mm-hmm.
the one bring somebody else to make them sick too, and it continues like that till the next person dies. No, you got to fix. You got to fix these problems. You can't wait like the roads, people driving a pothole because when they lost a hubcap, I, or I lost a bottom arm get thing, and the boy dead. But when you don't
Right.
clean these workplaces and things, people dying, people getting sick, people are not living up to their full potential because one woman came to me and her lung capacity, they had a lung function testing, they call it, and she is using less than 40% of her lungs to breathe because she worked in an environment. This one is a school, but when you're home, you're breathing better. So I don't want ministers to go there. I tried to meet Ralph, some that you know we talking about, because Ralph was spot on.
Yeah.
You know,
Actually, I have Miss Maxine McLean right there in the wings, and we're gonna bring her on about now if she's ready. I can see Mr. Glyne Murray is waiting as well. If Dave could reach him to let him work on we only see the crown of his head and not his face as yet. Yes. So yes, so I'm sure that Dave will give him a call and help him to position himself where we can actually see him. Okay, seeing him a little better. Can't see his mouth, but we're actually seeing. We can see the nose and the eyes now, and he's organizing himself there to come on just a little later. But I see Miss McLean there. Miss McLean, give us a thumbs up if you're ready to come on, and we're going to talk about
Yes, I am.
yes, okay, good evening, Miss McLean.
Good
It's
evening.
hi,
How are you?
hi, Maxine. Good,
How are
good,
you, sir?
good to see you. Oh,
Good to see you too.
I went to my office today after 2 because we're having too
Okay.
many industrial problems. Because when I left Bra,
After two, you were very late.
I went to Sunset Crest.
Oh, you had. Oh, yeah, that's right. You were. Hmm.
You know, so and that
Well, you're working very hard, and the government is
I
not making it any easier for you,
no, they're trying to
or
make it
they're
more
making it easy
difficult
for
for
you,
me.
whichever way, easy to work hard, or
Yeah, but you know they're trying to make it hard for me.
Hmm.
I don't mind. I've been working hard for years. I cut cans already, you know, and so cause I'm doing hard work. I clean up the sheet pen and coat pen and things. So I do that hard work. So this is hard when it comes to me. I know about heavy lifting. So when she talk about you know about doing the heavy lifting, then the body doing the heavy lifting out there, they don't know what to lift or how to lift it. So
Well,
we are, but I think the people had enough of me for long because I was talking for a long time, and mind you, I could talk some more, and I will, but I can do so after you. I'll give you opportunity to come in and have your say.
I'm gonna pick up where you from on the same topic, and we ended looking at this piece of legislation. What do they call it again? Let me get the exact name. Labor clauses, concession. Well, it's not bill. Well, it went to Parliament, went to the House. Before I start to talk about it, I just want to say a little to the Minister of Labor and to the Attorney General, who seem to have problems with this program. And they like to use this word people with an agenda. I don't know about y'all, but I have an agenda. And my agenda is that the interests of Barbadians must be best served by all who seek to serve that interest. So when I come on this show or when I participate in anything that I'm asked about this, it is because, like you can as well, like Marcy and all, we are concerned that the interest of Barbadians is well served. So people talk, I mean, I heard the Attorney General make reference to people commenting on legislation that they didn't read. And I would say to him,
He's one of them.
he needs to read the legislation that he signs off. I'll come back to that because there was an interesting comment made by the Minister of Tourism. But I want to, we were talking about, you were talking about the content, but I want to say a little bit. Marcia, all of these are notes from Mr. Thorne's speech yesterday. I went to school too,
which is good. Let us do a bit
because
of review of the
because
speech, and
I
then yeah.
want to be able to speak because it was interesting having led off debates. And I will start today. I heard a number of people trying to criticize him, and having sat in the Senate, but also having sat as a moderator of brass tacks and tell it like it is for a decade, 10 years. I know when people line up people to call. And in fact, I heard with my ears the other day recently that they do that. The government, when it was in opposition, when it was in government, they do that. They line up callers and they come with a common theme. And I noticed that the theme has started, they're trying to label the leader of the opposition, but I'm not going to waste too much time. I just want to say that And that prompted me when I listened to what he said and how he approached his contribution. And when I listened to some of the callers seeking to criticize him, and before that today, when I listened to the response, including that of the Prime Minister and the wrap-up of the Minister of Labour and the contribution of the Minister of Tourism, which was very interesting, and that of the Attorney General, who I thought would have addressed the issues raised by the Leader of the Opposition, it prompted me to take some time to go through what he was saying and the angle from which. Now, and I want to say this because what they tried to do today and yesterday in Parliament was to suggest, why aren't you talking about this legislation which is in the interest of workers? But I will share the words of the leader when he started. He said, this is a curious piece of legislation because it presents some legal difficulties. And then he said in other words, for me, he was critiquing it not for its noble sociological purposes, but for its legality. And that was the heart of his contribution. And he said the bill stands on shaky legal ground. Now, this is my contribution. If government goes to Parliament with a piece of legislation that is intended to serve the interests of the public, my question to those who criticize the contribution yesterday, and my question to them and to government, how best can you protect the interests of the beneficiaries of a piece of legislation, or how better can you do that than to ensure that the legislation can stand up in court? And I think that was at the heart of what Mr. Thorne was trying to demonstrate to the people in his maiden speech as leader of the opposition. And I think that is important because when I, for one, analyze piece of legislation for the purposes of our discussions, or when I sat as leader of government business, there are a couple of things that you wanted to make sure that when you are finished with a piece of legislation, that it can stand up to scrutiny. Because if what you're doing can be challenged in court and thrown out. Now, Caswell can speak to some of these, and he touched on one of the things when he mentioned the whole question of property. If when you go through the process of drafting a piece of legislation, and then you come to the Parliament and ultimately to the people with a piece of legislation that becomes law, and in this case, employers challenge it, and the courts find it deficient, you have done nothing for the workers. You understand? So I was very interested to hear how he dissected the legislation to show that as far as he was concerned, I'm no lawyer. I did maybe 2 law courses in my years of my 8 years of university study, 2 or 3 at most. I ain't a lawyer, but I think as a teacher, I used to say, I think I got a brain and an ounce of common sense, sufficient to be able to analyze and follow the argument. And it is unfortunate that the person who signed off on this legislation, saying to Parliament and before Parliament, saying to his cabinet colleagues, all is well with this legislation. It is good to go. And when we pass it into law, we don't have to worry. It will do what it says it wants to do. And what the leader of the opposition yesterday, and I say kudos to him for, was to show that there were several areas of questionable content as far as its legality is concerned. And I would, and in fact, he said, and he repeated it because I made notes, because when I went through my notes, he says, this is not a statement against workers' rights, because they were trying to give the impression, well, why you looking after the interests of the employer? That was far from true, you know, and he was saying it is not a statement against workers' rights. And he went on to say he commended the minister for his effort to mediate a historic tension between capital and labor. Maybe he's speaking too well for some people to understand. Wasn't using the big words, you know, but he was making a very strong case. So anybody who wanted to say, man, he went up there and he defend the workers. And I listened to the wishy-washy contribution, and I'm sad to say because we make a song and dance about having women in parliament. But the person who should have been defending this stoutly and countering what he said, because she would have gone through with the Attorney General, is the General Secretary, Barbados Workers Union, Member of Parliament for St. George. Is it South Caswell or North? North.
North.
St. George North, Miss Tony Moore. So I really am concerned that, you see, when we do this, well, Caswell went into the rationale behind that, but I'm gonna stick to this because I know we have some serious things to discuss. But so that was my biggest concern, that as I came away from that contribution from Mr. Thorne, I said, well, look, here we have a serious analysis of this legislation and the focus, because you see, before we even get into dissecting content, and Caswell has done some of that and we started it, what he's saying is you need to be sure that when you seek to achieve these objectives, you are standing on good legal ground. And he went through that, the whole question of a concession, and whether or not, as indicated here, he didn't say that we shouldn't have standards for employees, but he's saying that when you seek to impose those standards, can you legally remove from an employer certain concessions? Will that stand up in court? Is this the mechanism by which you agree that standards are important and that you insist on that? I would say this, that I believe that when government gives concessions to tourism, I've said it in over the years. For example, you get concessions for furniture and all kinds of things, tax-free, whatever. There should be some way to ensure that in the same way that government takes taxpayers' money to do that, those business people should recognize the value of doing business with other sectors. So, for example, when we talk about the linkages with agriculture, linkages with persons in like, let's say, our artists producing paintings and soft furnishings and whatever else, that they should have some way of trying to ensure that there's business done with locals as well. But at the end of the day, when you put this thing into legislation, you have to make sure you're on solid ground. Now, I found it interesting because you mentioned the Minister of Tourism. The Minister of Tourism, in my book, threw the Attorney General and the cabinet under the bus. And let me tell you what. Let me say, I think I wrote down his comment. But essentially, when he started his contribution, right? Because Mr. Thorne went through the whole thing of looking at tax concessions, the whole question of what constitutes property and so on. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. We can come back to that. But when he did that, having said that he was focusing on the legality of the provision, and he went through other difficulties with the bill, he said to the Minister of Labor, and I wrote it in quotes, please visit your Attorney General and get a legal opinion. So he was advising the Minister of Labor, based on all the concerns he had. Before we wrap up this debate, you go and let the Attorney General walk you through this and assure you that all is well. Now, I would have hoped that the Attorney General would have come and walk me through it as a citizen following the debate, but he came in his usual style to try to insult people like myself who come here to help citizens understand what's going on and question whether we read the bill. If I don't read it, I will not speak about it. But if I had to certify it as an Attorney General, I would make sure that I read every line over and over again and discuss with my technical advisors and so on that everything was fine. But I will leave that there. But it was interesting that when let me find where I wrote it down, when the Minister of Tourism spoke, he said that he was not going to go down the road of a legal debate. You need to defend the worker, and we all agree with that. He then went on to say this bill has to be or had to be certified by the Attorney General. You understand? No, so and that is the case. And he mentioned, and I don't have his exact words, but from my recollection, he mentioned that the bill goes to cabinet. And just to refresh the persons listening and refresh our memories as to the process, Drafting instructions are given by in this case, the drafting instructions would have come from the Minister of Labor, I presume, with probably some, and because there are two ministries involved, it's, a lot of it had to do with tourism. They probably would have gotten instructions from the Ministry of Tourism. It goes to the Chief Parliamentary Council, and that office will follow those drafting instructions, come up with a draft bill. That draft bill, and I am not sure what obtains now, but it would go to the Attorney General, who would peruse it. And just to
Mhm.
share again what would have applied when I was a minister, that draft bill would have come to a committee of cabinet, a subcommittee, which would be a subset of the members, a committee called the Governance Committee. And we would have gone through it. And that committee, in our case, was chaired by the Attorney General. We would have gone through it with the people from the Ministry of Tourism, in this case, the Ministry of Labor, and we would have people from the Attorney General's office, the Chief Parliamentary Council. Those are the people who do the drafting. And we would have walked through those things and questions would be asked. So when I heard the Minister of Tourism say, and I don't blame him, because you in a debate, you choose where you think you can make the most
Your
important point,
strongest. Yeah. Hmm.
and and so that you properly help people to understand, so you have a total picture. So he, as Minister of Tourism, and who served, and he said it, for about 30 years, as Caswell was saying, he did work in tourism in HR, and he said about 30 years that he had been in the industry, so he can tell us whether some of these conditions existed, how long. Incidentally, the Minister of Labor also worked in the tourism sector, so they know the industry well. So in terms of his position was, he's going to leave that legal thing. So my concern, and Marcia, you can signal to me when the time is, because I'm not looking at the time.
Hmm.
My concern is, do you, I mean, let me not ask the question, let me state it in make it a statement. In looking at a piece of legislation, I think what the leader of the opposition did was to say, before we even get into all the details, and as I said, he prefaced his comments by making sure that he stressed that this piece of legislation is sociologically important from the perspective of workers' rights, etc. But before we can start to talk about the thing, we have to make sure that this thing can stand up to scrutiny. I'm repeating myself, but I think repeating for emphasis. And I laud him for
Yes.
that. And so I really concerned that, having said that, we did not hear from government sufficiently, and certainly from my perspective, a response to that. In other words, if he was off base, I heard Minister Simmons in his usual smart aleck self trying to dismiss, but again, he's an attorney, and to me, he was one of the people who could have said, I'm sorry, but the leader opposition is wrong for these reasons, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and therefore I am confident that if he took this piece of legislation to court tomorrow, an employer would not have loopholes or whatever, that the interests of the workers could be well served because it is a solid piece of legislation. And we didn't hear that.
Right.
There was a lot of thumping the chest and as I said, in some cases, poking fun at. But we didn't hear that. And I want to say this, and I think I will stop there because Kazoo may have something to comment on what I said. It was interesting, Marcia, to note that our caution to them, please turn up in Parliament. I suppose because they had a leader of the opposition, they felt that they could. But there were more persons there, more members of Parliament present. They anticipated, and it will come later on, but I think some of them caught themselves. And I warned them again. I cautioned them that the public is listening and they don't want to see people wasting time with snide remarks, harassing the leader of the opposition because he's there by himself, making jokes, take the business seriously. So their bodies were there, and I hope the next time when there's legislation, because now that there's that kind of discussion, hopefully, certainly I would take the time to hear the leader of government business present a bill. I will listen to the opposition for the response, and hopefully, if there's serious discussion, they could keep my attention. But I really want to say that I am concerned that when I looked at that piece of legislation, in the absence of an official opposition voice in the House of Assembly, we would not have had a quarter of the contribution. That is my strong feeling. We would not have had a quarter of the contribution from the government bench or benches, from the government members of parliament, and we probably would, when it goes to the Senate, we probably wouldn't have. I mean, because there's a different situation up there in the Senate, because you have independent senators, and you also had two senators appointed at the discretion of the president, before there was a leader of the opposition who has now appointed two. But really and truly, it illustrated for me, Marcia, the difficulty or the reason why we saw some of the need to wheel and come again, that you had persons who just allow things to go, and perhaps, unfortunately, we will see when those things go before the law courts, over time, whether or the absence of challenges to the legislation, how good previous legislation was. We have seen ourselves and we have dissected some. But for me, this was instructive to the extent that, having listened to Mr. Thorne, he did an excellent job in letting Barbadians know that, one, a critical part of any piece of legislation to be effective, its ability is that legislation, the legality of that legislation, and its ability to stand up in court.
Yeah.
We tend not to focus on that, because I am not a lawyer. Casual, as I often tell him, knows a lot more law than a lot of lawyers, and I'm sure some of them seek his advice on matters. So that, to me, Marcia, was a big concern, and I hope that this is part of what we will see going forward, so that when we have conversations, we can say, that was a great piece of legislation intended to do A, B, C, D, F, and G. And I, as I would say here, no, I have absolutely no qualms complimenting a minister for bringing a piece of legislation that is good. But unfortunately, to date, under these folks, that has not been the case.
No, that's not happened. And I'm glad you said that. Mr. Franklin is gonna comment, but I just want to say something here, that for me, listening on, it was good, because to have that happening in Parliament, because normally what would happen is that we would wait till tonight, Mr. Franklin, and then we would give our thoughts on it, and so we just want to affirm, Mr. Thorne, if he's watching, we understand what our role is, right? We understand how the opposition in Barbados is made up. Excuse me. We have the leader of opposition, we have the senators, the opposition senators, and we have the people of Barbados. It's three arms to this whole thing. And so what happens in the parliament, we can continue it and continue that discussion in your homes, continue the discussion on the show, continue the discussion at your workplace, but make sure that there is discussion and that you have a voice. The people continue to have a voice. Mr. Franklin, I'm sure you listened to Mr. Thorne, our leader of opposition. What were your thoughts of what was said yesterday?
No, he was absolutely right on everything that he said. And I was surprised, because I have been arguing for years that you cannot take away people's money, because money is property. And that's not me saying it, that is the decision of the courts. So when the government wants to take up something, money or money's worth, they've got to go through a process. They've got to carry the court do something, or it's got to be a legitimate tax. This government chooses to ignore all of that. And that's all that was Ralph was pointing out initially, that these concessions, because these concessions have a value to them. When the government gives you concessions, you save $500,000 or so on the renovations of your hotel or whatever. That has real value. So if you take away from me, I got to spend that kind of money, you have just taken away my property. And as a result, I can take you to court and be breaching the Constitution for doing so. This act does not amend the Constitution. So that's the only way that they could have gotten away with this. But Ralph was a lecturer in law yesterday to the to those people who think they know law in the house, because they cannot find fault with what he's saying, because you realize that they didn't address the substance of what Ralph did or what Ralph said. They found other means to try to knock it out, but not the substance. They couldn't. But Marcia, please forgive me if I want to read something for you. Somebody sent this to me today. It was an article I wrote in the 8th of May 2012. And it has a nice picture of me there, though. Not a gray hair. It says, not a day has passed that the government has not been pilloried for its management of this country, because it was served to keep them on their toes. Instead, it has made them paranoid. However, that level of pillorying has become the norm to the extent that they are being criticized for doing something positive. They have introduced the Employment Rights Act to Parliament and are being condemned by, of all people, a Labour Party, whose foundation was to secure the rights of the labouring masses. If you pass St. Michael's Row and hear a rumbling sound, that would be the right accident Granny Adams turning in his grave. This is not to say that the Employment Rights Act bill is perfect, but is a step in the right direction. In opposing this bill, it would appear that the Barbados Labour Party is more interested in protecting the rights of the employer class, those with money, than they are in protecting the working class. Usually, I don't listen to debates from the House of Assembly because I find the level and content leave much to be desired. Nonetheless, I find myself in situations where I can't help but listen. Consequently, I was able to hear the opposition complain that certain provisions were onerous, notwithstanding that those fair provisions already exist under other legislation. In essence, they were not prepared and were complaining for the sake of complaining. Also, they complained about the provisions for reinstatement in the case where the employee is wrongfully terminated. The bill provides that the employee would be entitled to receive up to a year's pay if the employer did not reinstate the worker. Rather than complain about the draconian nature of that provision, a true Labour Party would welcome it as a deterrent against unscrupulous employers who knowingly wrongfully dismiss workers, knowing full well that all they would be entitled to pay is a meager amount provided under the Severance Payments Act. That is reminiscent of the time when a rich person would say to some unfortunate fellow that I would kick you and go to court and pay $10 for you. That provision only seeks to punish an employer for his wrongdoing. I hope that the government would not succumb to calls for its removal. Rather than complain about the provisions, the opposition should be urging employers not to wrongfully terminate workers so that it would not come into play. I would like to go on record as complimenting the Minister of Labour and by extension the government for taking the courageous step of bringing the legislation to Parliament. However, I would like to say to them that this Employment Rights Bill is a work in progress and would require adjustments as time goes on. I am not happy with the bill, but I think that it is a step in the right direction. I wrote that in 2012 when this bill was being debated in the House, because the Barbados Labour Party was venomous in opposition to this bill. I know these same people come here talking about some of the same people that, We were looking for workers' rights. When the Dems were trying to do workers' rights and help the workers, they were crying out against it. And this is not unusual. In 1975, when Arabara introduced an amendment to the Protection of Wages Act, their predecessors complained about it and threatened to take it to court and saying that they should not bind the crown. And Barra says it should bind any legislation they bring here dealing with workers will bind the crown. And if you want me to say so, I will say so. I give you that assurance. I have that debate from 1975. So these people have been up against fighting against employees long. And this group had the, the balls, the guts, the gonads, the temerity, whatever you they call it, to come here now and try to pretend that they are seeking the best interests of workers. This iteration of the Barbados Labour Party never had that in mind. They had in mind to protect the Barbados Workers Union because 14,000 multiplied by 26 is a hell of a lot more than 434 multiplied by 36. And that is what they wanted by $26. That is what they're all about. And they should be shamed. They should be shamed to walk and to tell people, especially when Tony Moore got it on the CBC News and said exactly what I'm saying to you now. I have the clip. I can send it to you, Marcia. All right, thanks. I see Glyne is there. And again, I don't want to hog. So, by all means, please, I can come back. Marcia, you are muted.
Sorry. Thanks, Mr. Franklin. We have a few minutes before about 2 minutes before Mr. Murray comes on. But I think that generally, people are just saying that they felt like they were in a class. I listened to it and I learned so much. I'm not I'm not a law student at all. We just did that as a course, commercial law as a course. So for me, it was quite interesting listening to him and to see the angle that he came. And as Miss McLean said, that at no point was he negating the sociological importance of this legislation at all. He was just saying that if you really want to protect the workers, then you got to make sure that this is legal and that there will be no loopholes. When if an employer decides that they're going to wiggle out of it, that it's really protected. I don't know. I didn't listen today whether today the Senate would have met. I don't know if it was something that was discussed at that level today with the two, just to hear what the opposition senators would have said. This is Trisha Watson and also Ryan. I need to make sure I get
Walters.
Ryan Walters. I need to get and not say Ryan Brathwaite. Ryan Walters. I didn't know. I haven't. Someone sent me something, but it was very late, and I was getting ready to come on the show. So I'm not sure if Miss McLean is still there. If she's able to tell us if this was done today, if this was brought up at that level.
No,
Mr.
Glenn
Franklin,
is saying no.
No,
Glenn is
it
saying
wasn't.
no.
It wasn't debated today because what they did was to postpone the debate until next week. The leader of government business, I would say, would have been pretty gracious in her indication that since they were just appointed, they would need time to do some preparation. So they have a week. So they just did introductions and congratulations and thank yous to the outgoing senators. So next week, I will listen to what happens in the Senate. And the Senate traditionally has, over the last, 4 years? 5, was it 18 to 23, 5 years? And the Senate has really been where you heard debates. You hardly heard anything of substance coming out of the House of Assembly. On most debates, you had very few people making substantial contributions and so on.
Making
So next
sense.
week you will hear. Say that, Caswell.
You said making substantial. Then I said no, making sense.
Okay, okay. So I am
Well,
going off. I'm going off screen for a minute, but I'm hearing everything that's happening.
yes. Okay. Thank you. Well, let me just thank you so much, Miss McLean and Caswell, for educating us so far, all about workers' rights, and we looked at the leader of opposition. It's just so hard to even to form your mouth to say it, that it actually exists. That position actually exists, and we saw it, in play yesterday in Parliament. And tonight, I want to really welcome Mr. Glyne Murray with us, and who tonight, he's been a diplomat. He's worked so many years as personal assistant to various prime ministers, and he's been in media, trained in media, and we are honored, sir, to have you tonight. Tonight, you're going to paint portraits for us in courage, conscience, and credibility of Bishop Joseph Atherley and Mr. Ralph Thorne over their decisions to walk away from the Barbados Labour Party. So we're going to deal with that first. And so, welcome, sir, and we are eager to hear. What we want to see, those pictures and those portraits tonight. Welcome,
Th-
sir.
Thank you very much, Marcia, and thank you for such a warm welcome. I only hope I could rise to the occasion. I trust that visually, am I okay now visually?
Yes, quite
Getting right.
handsome. Quite handsome, and
Oh,
looking lovely.
be, be, be careful with cats, well,
I wouldn't go
he get
that far,
jealous.
but yeah, coming out already.
Yeah, jealous.
Yeah.
Before I go into my main discourse on the portraits and courage, conscience, and credibility, and those two worthy gentlemen, I just like to say that uh, part of the triumph of the Marcelik showing the loyal opposition over the cybersecurity, a cybercrime bill,
Cyber,
Cybercrime bill.
cybercrime bill, right? Was also demonstrated there when leader of the business government minister, the Senate Minister Cummings said that confirmed that this bill would now go to the select committee dealing with governance and other matters for a fuller discourse and ventilation and hearing of other views and whatnot. So that has to go into your success column, and you can be justly proud of yourself. Also, as a pressure group, you would have been the most successful pressure group or anything like that in the history of Barbados, because you actually saw government pull back a number of measures. Not just talk and accept and give a lot of platitudinous statement, but actually walk back and want reschedule, send to committee. And I think it's a tribute to all who contributed. It's a tribute to the quality of your work, your ability to connect with the public. I think that is key. That is crucial. There's a concept, in social psychology as the wisdom of crowds. And basically, it says that people collectively, before even discuss it with one another, come to the same conclusion about matters based on what they hear. And I think there's an ample demonstration of how people are have risen to the work of the show and the loyal opposition, and the benefits to Barbados have begun to pay off. But before, once again, where I tell Cal, fear not yourself about the Barbados Workers Union. There are a lot of theatrics and PR going on in the Workers Union. I see has a manager of communications and something else who speaks for the General Secretary of the Union. I see that is PR. No PR has the credibility of an official of an organization, particularly if the people have voted for that official. So that is that PR, even down to having a crowd to welcome and congratulate Ms. Moore yesterday after the bill was passed in the House. Following on what was done for Ralph Thorne early in the morning. So don't worry about the theatrics, but I would like to ask one question. I have a document before me called, it says Barbados Workers Union Review Summary, Paul Goulter, Goulter, July 2016. A couple of years ago, while on a call-in program, I had encountered this more about it, and I raised this question about this SIR report. It has 29 recommendations. I will deal with it on another occasion. I'm not sure if Caswell knows about it. That's 29 recommendations. I would just like to ask Miss Moore whether the Barbados Workers Union in the 8 years, almost 8 years since this report was submitted, how many of the 29 recommendations have been implemented? I think you're beginning to see this fight for survival. That is being done, but that is no accident. Caswell is spot on. When you can see a workers' union have a government as a partner in celebrating its what anniversary? That's 30. What 30? Last year was 41, and it's 72nd or something like that, or 82nd, 1941, 82nd. They had down to the podium on the platform at the so-called botanical gardens, but I call it the baking ground because I ran across those and played cricket and cat cane and bread. That was my part of my neighborhood. I know it. It's nothing but a baking ground. I don't think because you plant a few trees and chairs that turns something a botanical garden in the true nature of a botanical garden. But down to the podium, which is NCF, it was declared that the government and the NCF and the government and the BW were partners in this celebrations. That opened my eyes to a lot of possibilities. But I mean, this has some, and I kept it quiet for many years. It has some horrifying material, unless they have been transformed, as I like to say, overnight or over the last few years. The Barbados Workers Union is, if not much has changed, is only a shadow of what it used to be and what it should be. So, forget the proper setting and the showboating and the front stage behavior. The front stage behavior is what you do to impress the public, but it's when you go off stage or backstage that you deal with the reality of life.
Mhm.
Now, okay, so now if I might go on to my area property, and the reason why I chose those titles to describe what I was going to talk about is that Bishop Joseph Atherley and Mr. Ralph Thorne have something in common.
Mhm.
They're Mr. First of all, Bishop Atherley, who I spent more time with active in politics than one. He's one of the most sincere persons. He is the most sincere person I've ever met in politics. Period. Honest, straightforward. He lives his Christianity daily. I've seen many situations where propositions were made to him and he stood his ground. But to drink a beer, to do nothing, no matter what, he's stuck to his. So I have a lot of respect for him. Same thing for Mr. Thorne. I don't know him as well personally because I'm some years older than him, but we come from the same neighborhood. Spoonersville, Long Gap, Grisettes,
Mhm.
all had the same connection. And the observation that Ms. McLean made about the comments from Minister Glyne, how he's really deferring to the advice and the guidance of the Attorney General on that legislation. Is it a good indication because both Mr. Thorne and Mr. Glyne come from basically the same neighborhood, the same Spoonersville, and we grew up in that neighborhood where we knew what all calling was in the world. We grew up near Grantley Adams. I would give you a fuller description. So they are grounded and they come from the same levels of society. So they are grounded in certain values, which I'm pretty sure they will not move away from any great measure. And when, if you notice, they have gone away. They are the latest in a long list of people who have left the Barbados Labour Party.
Mhm.
And to my from my knowledge and information, I've seen a lot, heard a lot, read a lot. The common thread let me give you some names first, in case. Let me refresh the public's name. There was Lynette Eastman,
Mhm.
Maria Airguard, Marsha Hines Lane, now Myrie, Anthony Wood, I know Owen Arthur, I know Ralph Thorne. I also moved there, but I will not put myself in that. Someday I will tell you what my experience is or what motivates me. But the common feature in all the movement of those people um, was the leadership of Miss Morley.
Mm.
Right,
Let's go over
that is
those
key.
names again. Let's go over those names. So you have Lynette Eastman, Marsha Hines, Myrie, Anthony Wood, Maria.
Maria Airguard, Maria
Right.
Airguard,
Uh-huh.
and Owen Arthur. I know those are the most prominent ones. But there are others, believe me, there are others who have moved away, but they're not high profile people in the public side, but they have moved away emotionally, intellectually, etc., away from the party because of this, obviously. And the commonality of the leadership is not accident. Because leaders are made to mold, to have a vision, to shape, to influence, to inspire, to try to work together for a common good and a common purpose. And debaters have a saying, you might be bright, but you ain't shining. You might be bright, but you aren't shining. I'm sure Caswell and the others there know that proverb. And that is because they have always had an indication to go for. We have some very bright persons not just because they have ideas, they show their quality and their intellect, and not just their performance on front stage, but what comes through in the long run. Because in the final analysis, leadership is judged by and the quality of your brain, your intellect, your training, your education. They lead to the decisions you make, and the quality of decisions you make in the final analysis really is the summary of your brain and your intellect and your training, your background, etc., your socialization. So always the decisions, not what you say on stage and perform on stage. And unfortunately, that has led persons to believe that because you can talk pretty or long and sweet, uh, that some way makes you bright, quote unquote, quote unquote. But there's a
Just excuse me for a second. I'm not going off. Just my video, because I'm doing something that I don't want you to see. All right. So,
okay, yeah. No,
but I'll
I
be
was
listening
saying
to
that.
every word.
Okay, I was saying that a children can be there's a confusion in some people's mind between a precocious child, and a precocious child. A precocious child is a child we in Barbados we call it. I am not sure what you say in Jamaica. You're force right because you're showing turns and tendencies and dosing ahead of your right of they have the time for that. So you're precocious. It doesn't mean you're prodigious to me, but you're exceptional. You have greater qualities and greater intellect and want to do more value. So I think that has a mix up in the case in some people's cases. But Minister, let me give you the history of Minister Wood. No, sorry, Bishop Joseph Atherley. Bishop Joseph Atherley left he became when he moved he became leader of the opposition in 2018. And he was the same way that slurs are being cast at Mr. Thorne. He was subjected to some of the most unkind things ever. I could not believe that. I could not. I was glad I had left that part of the BLP, that subculture, that new culture taken over. He was accused of, for example, he said that he was enticed by the money and the perks of the office and whatnot. Bishop Atherley, I know for sure, does not even take a salary from his church. Yes. He works otherwise. He's a highly educated man to the master's degree level. And he does other projects to make his, so he does not depend on the church. So he's not the man to have been tempted by that salary. In addition, the perks, as far as I know, you only had a personal assistant, a maid, and there was no vehicle. He had to use his own vehicle. Very little travel allowance. There was no real staff. There were no big bountiful office. Very few office supplies. Mm-hmm. Right. I remember these things. These decisions are made by the executive of the government, not by any law. In the same way, the subvention is not a law. The subvention is an executive decision started by Owen Arthur. And whether you get it or not ready, there's no law. If Bishop Ali had been given the subvention with no seats in the House beside himself, it would not have broken any law. In the same way, that was an attempt to place, offer the opposition, the DLP, 2 seats in the Senate when there was no legal provision to do so.
Right.
I'm saying if you want the will to give Bishop Joseph I to make him more effective as leader of the opposition, it could have been done. But the opposite was done. You starve for funds, you accuse of all kind of mean things. In addition, Bishop Atherley had, in his time, created a school called the School of Politics and Governance. The School of Politics and Governance, right? And it was meant to be to raise the level of debate, to make it when it was coming out of the St. Michael West branch of the Barbary Party, it was non-partisan in its approach to the subjects they were entertained, the persons involved, the areas, etc. But the central party wanted to control that. They wanted to decide who should come on, what we should talk about, when. And Bishop Ali resisted that, as he should. And it gradually, bit by bit, it cost something like $8,000-9,000 to be able to put on an event, do it properly, in good surroundings, advertising, etc. Because I was part of his team that helped with that. And a great by bit, we lost sponsorship, support, and whatnot. And I'm convinced that it is because of they not allow itself to be manipulated and controlled by the leadership, the general leadership, the Barbary Party leadership. That is why it eventually died a death. And in addition, I'm trying to give you, it's always good to know the background to these events, and not just what is said up front. I'm trying to give you some background, some context. Bishop Atherley was at one time, he was Parliamentary Secretary of the Ministry of Home Affairs. And then when I left office, I had been Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office. I was replaced by Senator John Williams, who Mr. Atherley eventually fired and made CARICOM ambassador for non-performance. Bishop Atherley became Minister of State in the Prime, replaced me then in that role. And there were instances where he had to come round with persons who are not in the leadership. They had differences, resist, and to get you to do things which you know better. He was not the way, either some things or the way to do things. So he had all those pressures placed on him. But above all, he was also subjected to, as a candidate in the 2013 elections. There was he ran for St. Michael West. He was the MP for St. Michael West up to 2008. He lost with the sway against the BLP in 2008. But he kept working the constituency, kept working in touch, had branches, etc., functioning, stayed in touch with the people doing things for the person. He worked the constituency well. But in 2013 elections, St. Michael, which has the most seats of any one block in Barbados, I think there are 10, 11 seats, 10 seats plus the Bridgetown or something. It was divided into zones, and there was a team put in place to put resources, help canvas, help organize, help mobilize these zones, etc. And the meetings were to be held. The leadership of the zones were supposed to go out and meet with the people and boost this, because you're running 30 different elections at one time when there's a general election. But there are 3 seats. St. Michael West, which is Bishop Atherley, the seat, the St. Michael Central, which is now held by Mr. Arthur Holzer, the Speaker, and then St. Michael West Central. All their borders touch and run onto each other and one beyond the other. Right. They never got the support, the full support that they were supposed to be given to them in all the resources, human or otherwise, that go into running an
Why
effective
was
campaign.
that? Why was that? Why was that?
Before I get there, let me tell you that those 3 seats, I think one lost with 100, less than 300 votes. If those 3 seats had been won, or that could have been Barbara Lepre could have been reelected to office. Because eventually they moved from 10 to 14, and 3 seats would have given 17 out of 30. There was 17 or 13. They lost with such paltry numbers that if the work had been gone into that, the figures show that they could have won that seat, and Owen Arthur could have been. Obviously, the party could have won victory, and Owen Arthur could have been prime minister again. But that was meant to be because there was a move afoot to stop Mr. Arthur from becoming prime minister again. So the reason because the full support, he did not join Bishop. I did not have the full support of the full leadership of the St. Michael team. Neither did Mr. Edgell nor Mr. Goodnedgell nor Mr. Arthur Holder. They were redeemed in the 2018 election. So the Joe again, but then once Bishop Atherley became, that's what we call him at a personal level. The move was against him, and he was placed. He came up against. He was replaced as a candidate, and he couldn't. That St. Michael West is probably the closest. Are you familiar with the term a rotten borough? A rotten borough is an historical feature of all British political life, where you could belong to a nobleman, and all the people working in the estates, we were controlled by the nobleman, and they were serfs, etc. And they were controlled and bought out and financed. Their livelihoods were controlled by the. So I think St. Michael West is probably the closest thing you have to that. St. Michael West is a very tough constituency that deserves and requires and demands a lot of money to keep it going. So therefore, once Bishop Atherley became leader, they tried to discredit him, like I said, and because he was not as well known as Mr. Thorne, the same thing that they attempt against him, I think, will not work. If you notice, there's an editorial in today's Barbados Today, which looks at his move across, Mr. Thorne's move across away from the BLP, leaving the BLP, and becoming leader of the opposition. And it says that the question asks, I'm paraphrasing, what change will he make besides his personal circumstances? What change will he make besides his personal circumstances? In effect, he's gone for the money and the perks and whatnot. But like I show, there's no real money. Everybody knows he's been a successful lawyer for many years, and as we would say in Barbados, he's not a bread and fish lawyer. He's a man of substance who has made a good living for himself, who's been quite successful, not only in Barbados, but regionally in his law practice. So that will not catch in the same way it was said that Bishop Atherley was left the BLP because he did not get a ministry. Far from the truth. So but these things are being said about whenever you leave the BLP, whenever all these persons that they might have left the BLP, even late Mr. Arthur, a lot of negatives were said about it, even about me. But that is another story. But the common thing is that you are usually accused. I'm sure Kat as well has experienced it too. If you are critical of the BLP, if you're critical of the BLP leadership, or critical of the BLP, you're accused of not liking the person, or you don't like me, right? Nobody's ever heard about it. Nobody's ever said about. Suppose me, I don't like you.
Right.
It is supposed you are supposed to automatically like her, however. I there's nobody in my life I don't like. If I don't respect you, I don't deal with you. But I don't spend time not liking. So but this thing that you feel that you are a person entitled to be liked at all times by all about it is something that has been cultivated among the kind of personality that has developed or has been developed deliberately around Miss Molly over the years. But let me go to Mr. Minister, Mr. Thorne now. Like I said, Mr. Thorne has come, like we all did, from a common background. Father had 10, 12 children. About 10 children, I think about 10 children. Modest man, decent, respectable, church going. I know because we would have, my family also knew his family, and we all went to Gracehill Moravian Church at one time on this. So there's a substratum of that. And if you read his memoirs, which says, he wrote a triumphant memoir. I'll have to go through my notes and again, whispers to my soul. I'll give the full name for you.
Who's written that? You say Mr. Thorne?
Mr. Thorne. And if you read that, you see his more religious spiritual upbringing. As a matter of fact, he's also even been to Carleton College and then theology. I'm not sure if he's got down to a degree there, but he's formally studied and he would have gotten some kind of qualification in theology. So these accusations of him that you begin to hear now, that's mentioned in the latest about him is that he has his detractors from within the BLP are now beginning to say that he left because he did not get the job of CJ. The post of Chief Justice, I think, will come up for renewal. The current holder, I think, will demit office in May. So in a few months, he will have a new sub-justice. That is not true. I know for sure it's not true. But it shows you that when you do surgery, you're not supposed to do it from purest means or for the good of the country based on morality and judgment and doing the right thing. You're supposed to do it because only certain people, only certain strata of society are supposed to do things for the good of the country. There's another concept. You're familiar with the term noblesse, oblige, NOBLESSE, OBLIGE. This concept that if you have risen to prominence, if you have prominence or success, you have an obligation to give back something to the country. But this has been interpreted in Barbados, I think, to be that only certain people are entitled. It's a patronizing. They have been using a patronizing way to look down on other people in Barbados instead who have different social standing or origins or accomplishment level at them. And that has been used to, even when Arthur in his time had to deal with that within the Barbados Labour Party. There are people who fancy themselves to be the elite. There's some of them are still around. The mentality, the practice are still around. So let me go back again to Mr. Thorne. I'll tell you what I mean. It's been made to seem as though Mr. Thorne is a fly-by-night. Now, what we in Barbados used to call a political grasshopper. We fight from party back and forth from back, right? You know, grasshopper is always playing this role in later by flying from plant to plant and flying about. So we used to term anybody who did that a political grasshopper. And that he runs from party to party. Mr. Thorne, far from that, Mr. Thorne, between 1991 and 94, cultivated the same seat held by the Prime Minister. Now they had St. Michael Northeast. The Barbados Labour Party were beaten 24-3 in 1986. So in the interim between 86 and 91, Mr. Thorne spent considerable amount of time, invested considerable amount of time and effort in that constituency with the aim of getting the nomination in 1991. To all appearances, it seemed it was understood that he was the man earmarked for it because of the effort he put into it. He was even given a time where the nomination would take place, and it was supposed to be a foregone conclusion. But lo and behold, when he got to nomination, Miss Morley had been nominated.
Oh
Why
wow.
that same group of persons who don't still forgive me, but I have air badges is coming out that trying to get fixed.
Yeah, that's
Um,
okay.
yeah, um, having been supported up to point of then that elitist group within the Barbados Labour Party brought in Miss Morley, probably because they think she came from a similar background as they think that they are now are or have become. Right? So he went and ran for the DLP in 1994 and 1999. So it was not because of any, is that he was hard done by. He went back to the Dems and then he came back to the Barbados Labour Party. But this idea, this term where the Prime Minister said is a very telling term. You must listen to these things very carefully. Quite reading these people's state of mind. It says, when his comment, easy come, easy go.
Mm-hmm.
Easy come, easy go. As though he's not worth much. You're not missing anything, you're not losing anything. And I thought it was a very demeaning statement, was uncalled for. I think that in those circumstances, a leader of a party, a prime minister, could be gracious and pay a comment person who was part of your team for whatever for up to that point. But when I saw that, it also made me remember what was said. You remember in Barbados the day of hold on a sec. Barbados the day of I think it was December 13th. There's a story, a comment made by Miss Morley, the Prime Minister for the Barbados Water Authority, about saying the Barbados Water Authority was not Barbados Water Authority. Oh, it says here, December the 13th, 2023, Miss Morley said of the Barbados Water Authority, it is not a salmon top retriever or a good old common breed dog, right? And I see that I find it was undeserving to say that about an institution and the people in the institution to cast him in that term. So therefore, I put that in the same right as when she said about Mr. Thorne, easy come, easy go. And when I'm sure you would have read with him Shakespeare. When you see these things, observe these things, it made me remember William Shakespeare. And when Cassius asked Brutus, speaking of Caesar, on what meat does Caesar feed that he's become so mighty? On what meat does this or Caesar feed that he's become so mighty? And to therefore see people and treat them in those terms is to not give people their due respect as a human being, as a person of accomplishment. Should not be said so with anybody at the same time. Everybody has their worth and their value and makes their contribution. But to say easy come, easy go, I think it's so one can expect. So don't be surprised then when you start hearing these things made about Mr. Thorne, because it seems as though the people around Miss Morley, they're in human affairs and again in sociology, social psychology, there's a clique and a clap. A clique is a large group of people who stick together, like have these interests and stop us, make it difficult for us to get in. But then beyond that, there's a clap, which is a group of people who hero worship their person,
Mm-hmm.
who clap for everything they say or do, who who and who, in fact, some of those same people I've heard say myself that Miss Molly can do no wrong, cannot be wrong, and that was
Wow.
before that was before she was private. So when you have that culture operating within the BLP, one should not be surprised the things you hear about persons. They said all kind of things about me when I left them in 2013, when I saw the shift in culture was totally alien and at anything seen before. It did not it did not stay with my standards of behavior. I left it in October 2013, even before Mr. Arthur. Mr. Arthur left in July 2014. He was asking me the whole of I said, no, you can do it, but I have to go. And they said, I told myself, even though I am not in the church, like deep in the church, like you, Marcy, or even Mr. Thorne or Mr. Atherley, it made me remember a psalm which says, I'd rather be the doorkeeper in the house
Mm,
of the Lord than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. I'd rather be a doorkeeper. I'd rather stand up at the door, open the door for people, say enter or don't come in or what, than to go inside and dwell in what the Barbados Labour Party had become. And I see it at that I mean with all sincerity, based on what had become of the Barbados Labour Party. Uh, the person that was never the culture of the Barbados Labour Party. The Barbados Labour Party was a place where people were casting robust debates internally, because especially when you go to the meeting, because the leader of the party, whether it's primary or peer, when you go to meetings, you were comrade, items or comrade after comrade. You're no longer prime minister or whatever. And you had to abide by the standards in the constitution of the Barbados Labour Party. And therefore everybody was there was an opening to speak, but and there was not, if you disagree, there was not this attempt to I mean, harsh words would be exchanged, etc., as happened in these things. But there's no need to treat you as less than a human being and to make you feel that you're worth less than what you are, and therefore, um, Mr. Thorne, Mr. Thorne is to be seen, his moves to be seen in that background. And the truth about the report that there were people canvassing, filling out his constituency, even while he was saying it's true. I had people talking about it. Denials are being made, but there were people doing it or saying they were doing it on people's behalf.
oh,
And
wow.
you can, right? So there was a definite move afoot because I know Mr. Thorne. We've chatted many times. We've covered, and there were the move was low and coming because that's just like Bishop Arthur. He's a very tolerant, patient person. As they say, put up with a lot for a long time, and then finally, in all good conscience, he said he could.
Mhm.
I pause now if you can, and if you want me to see if anybody wants to raise any issues, and I will get
Yes,
back to some or
yes.
whatever.
I mean, once again, thank you for the education. And one of the things I picked up, as you were, I was writing some notes. I saw the point of courage on these two men. These two men standing up to a leadership that they thought was oppressive. You gave the example in Mr. Athley's case, where he had this wonderful training program for young people, and they wanted to take it over and to say who is supposed to be the trainers. And when that didn't go well, then all of a sudden the money dried up, and we wonder why. So I saw a lot of courage, and I'm glad that you share those kinds of stories with us, because I think that is important, for us to understand the history of these two men, and possibly what they would have gone through within the party. I see Mr. Franklin wants to say something because you left as well. Did you concur with anything that Mr. Murray was saying? You're
Not
muted.
hearing.
Yeah.
Now, I endorse most of what Glyne has said because the thing is, I lived through a lot of it.
Not hearing.
You know, I was a member of
I think
the
I'm.
Barbados Labour Party,
Yeah, I
and
know, but I'm not. I'm not
I
hearing.
was an assistant secretary. So Glenn is only talking to about things that I knew. And so if people wanted to challenge what Glenn is saying, he has a witness, an eyewitness. I was there, you know, and we when they talk about the robust discussions with the in the meetings, we would be in there from 7 o'clock at night, man, midnight. We sitting there arguing with whosoever will. I remember many times I driving up behind the last bus because I was living in Castle Grant at the time, and the last bus used to pass. I drive my car, and I would drive up. Mind you, that bus used to leave. Could not left me, because I can keep up with it. you know? So I can testify that that is the fact, but it does not. Not even dissent. You don't call it not dissent. Another opinion, even how don't no matter how gently expressed in the Barbados Labour Party, is now not tolerated. And I was laughing when I heard Glenn saying about people can't talk, and I laugh because I'm not saying him. I'm going to tell you that other cap because I was a Barbados Labour Party member for years. Some people still speak with me, and they tell me about the things that he's denying. I'm a trade unionist representing public officers, and those public officers who complain and tell me the same things. So Glenn could be sleep at the wheel. These things are true, and but we know when you got a despot, we expect.
Yeah. Mr. Murray had dropped out there a bit. He's right back. But before he comments, yes, you're back. Let me find out, Miss McLean. You were listening, and I'm sure you've been reading some of the attacks that have started on Ralph Thorne, which Mr. Murray is saying some of it is similar to what Reverend Atherley went through, but because Mr. Thorne is more well known, some of that backlash is not going to hit him as hard or come at him as strong. What are your thoughts about that?
There will still be said. I mean, I had to say to somebody, this whole notion about doing something for money. I said to somebody, but if Mr. Thorne wanted money, he would continue in his legal practice, sit on the back bench or whatever. I mean, it is unfortunate. I will say this, and I've been around Marcy, decades. There's a very elitist element to the Barbados Labour Party. And I remember when Prime Minister Arthur became Prime Minister, it was alleged that a member of the party said, look what Barbados has come to. And I remember saying to one of his close friends, because when Arthur worked with me as a part-time lecturer at university, I remember having to first mark courses, because if you're part-time, you don't officially first mark. You mark, but there has to be a full-time person. And as bright as he was or whatever, there was this notion that he was not good enough. I remember a prominent member of that party, many of you might remember that there was, so this is elitist, as I said, element to it. When we had what we call the mutual affair in Barbados. That was when many Barbadians for the first time discovered, before it became Sagicor, that as a mutual insurance company, policyholders had a right to vote at their annual general meetings and so on. And somebody nominated my name for director. And a close friend of mine was at the house of his then girlfriend. And I remember the person was a member, not a member of government, but a member of the party, prominent member. And the person went and he said, oh, well, you can't vote for her. She's not like us. You see, this woman was an attorney. I don't think that man was an attorney, but he was a prominent person in that party. And so I grew up over the years observing. I'll give you another example, because people need to understand this. When Sir Harold St. John was getting ready to demit office, there were discussions. At that time, Paradise Beach Club was very much still operational, and I was standing in the queue at Royal Bank at the bottom of University Hill. and some maids from the hotel. It was a Thursday. I think that's when they used to get paid. They were standing in there, and they were discussing potential. Ironically, it was St. Christchurch South, because that is the constituency that Sahara represented, right, Glyne? And
Yes.
there was a guy who I knew well because we were students together, and it was interesting because people talk and they don't know who is hearing and who knows what. And the person said, "Well, so and so will," and y'all who are the party could recognize. I didn't get permission to call his name as we do it. There's a parliamentary thing, and this is so and so will never get that nomination. He come from nowhere, and they said that the doctor would get the nomination, as he did. So what when I listened to this, and I've heard Glyne say, but as I said, there were elements of this, and I suspect there continue to be elements of it, where there's this sense that you have the elite and you have those who adore the elite. And so you will get somebody who will tell you, "Oh man, I can sit on the sidewalk with the guy on this block and drink a rum and smoke," or whatever the case may be. But when it comes to doing business, who gets to do the business? I'm doing some analysis, but I don't want to get too deep into this, but I'm doing some analysis, because when you start to look at who gets contracts, who gets to sit on boards and chair things and so on, that certain things are restricted. So I listen to people, but I also observe the actions. And, so it's an interest for me. And I noticed, I think it was Adrian's comments. For me, I've always seen that element of it, and so when we start to talk about workers' rights and all kinds of things, let me see your actions. Let me see your history. Let me see how you treat people, how you choose to address certain people as opposed to others. Let me see the deference that is paid to certain individuals and not others. Glyne mentioned the whole use of comrade. We still refer to that. I have, as I said, I've witnessed the deference paid to certain people, and I remember saying to somebody, as far as I'm concerned, I am never disrespectful to anybody, but understand that we are all men and women.
Yeah.
Right.
Important.
And we treat each other with that respect. But it's an interesting thing. So I have, but you see, they will try to. I mean, people will always try to say why people did not do what try to give explanations for people's actions, but they don't confront the reality frontally. And I thank Glyne, because it is interesting to understand. I mean, because I've been around a long time, and I start putting names to places, and you hear about constituencies and needing money, and then you look to see who gets selected or who is pushed to do that because they got deep pockets or whatever the case may be. I always remember. I always remember when
natural.
I remember when the prison burnt down, and they would have done work at Harrison Point. At that time, I would have been a call-in host. And I remember a young Black businessman calling the program and calling me off the air to complain that there was work that should have been spread around, and who got it and who was responsible for oversight of it. So there's a lot. So I tell people, words and actions need to, to go to. It's interesting.
Marcia, if I might interject here.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The name of the book, the childhood memoir written by Ralph, is called "Whispers of Peace to My Soul." Whispers of Peace to My Soul. Peace to My Soul. Interesting book. I think if you read that, you give it insight into how he's brought up and socializing. How you're brought up. You don't always move too far. You often don't move too far away from your roots, right? But the thing about the elitism, even when Arthur became prime minister, he had to fight against some people who felt that they were elites within the bar because they had been there longer than him. He'd come and leapfrog over them by performance, by ability to perform, by persons who themselves, some of them are still around today, uh, thought that they were next in line, etc., etc. And he really sought to bring about to deal with the whole question of the social composition of the party, people from different backgrounds. As a matter of fact, he at one time had deliberately selected a number of candidates because those persons had the characteristics that would help erase that elitist name that was attached to the BIP for so long. And it was not always that he thought that he wanted to change it. But the persons, two of the persons whom he had pinpointed, didn't have it in them. They weren't prepared to work. And unfortunately, what happened was not his number one choice. But I will we'll talk about that in another context, another time. But there is that strand. If I used to say, first of all, talk about contracts and one of the outstanding things about Mr. Arthur is that he never put not even any of his family on a board, not even a school board. He kept all his family. So there was not supposed to be any sign of nepotism on his part. But I wish that had been maintained as part of tradition and practice of the Barbados Labour Party in government. Unfortunately, it has not. To the detriment, because we talk about Conrad, Maxine. I think it would be useful to explain that the two Labour parties are Labour Party because they came out of the Socialist, Democratic Socialist Board. So, and because Socialist became Conrad, and became part of the lingo, the exchange that you make each other. But I don't hear anybody mention about Democratic Socialism in either of the two parties.
Right, we're not hearing as clear as we were hearing before.
You probably have to get closer.
Okay. Do you hear anybody have a particular democratic socialist philosophy these days? Really honest on the stage.
I think people probably subscribe to elements of it, but the label, I think people watching and absorbing North American politics where they've misused the word socialism and so on. But if you look at the fundamental principles and the philosophy that drove the early plans and so on of Errol Barrow and in the case of the Labour Party coming forward. But I think people probably don't even, a lot of this younger generation probably have not even taken time to even study what the elements are, to even understand, to have a sensible or serious conversation as to what it is and how that translates into policy and strategizing to accomplish what it is. You may hear them speaking to some things which rightly fall under that umbrella, but I think the word has, in the minds of some people, because of what parts of the Western world have kind of described, or use the word to, or use it in pejorative terms, But I think at the end of the day, my concern is that as we look at what's going on, are we generating across the political divide, let me use that expression, a set of persons who are grounded in some kind of philosophy, some kind of vision for this country, some kind of reason for getting into the political arena. And I noticed that Kimar is there. We are probably talking of periods beyond Kimar, but when I look at somebody like Kimar and what he is trying to do, what he does, it strikes me as somebody who is willing to go out there, to use the expression, the hustings, as the word Glyne and Caswell.
That's right. Yeah.
Go out there
Yeah.
in communities, to understand what people are dealing with, to really want to make a difference. Because, and I'll say this, people look at you, Marcia. I got a WhatsApp message today. I wouldn't even refer it. I will send it to you because it is some joker. And I wouldn't give it any kind of wings or,
Don't even read it. Don't even read it. Right?
Because, but what a lot of people can't understand, that there are people who are genuinely concerned about the welfare of their fellow citizens. That you do this with no ulterior motive. I could be sitting now, Marcia, night after night watching Nollywood movies. You got me into African movies once we got involved in film, that film. And I mean, seriously, but to me, how could I, as somebody who has benefited from what this country had to offer, I mean, and I heard Glyne speak of Ralph Thorne. And, one of the things that endears me to Ralph is I see a parallel between his family and mine. I believe there were 11 siblings in his family. There were 11 in mine. I went to school with one of his sisters. I worked with one of the younger sisters. I have known him. I've known several of his siblings. And I have seen how working class Barbadians have instilled in their children a set of very strong values. And those values translate into what they do and say and become as adults. We didn't have gold spoons. I don't believe that any of us in that situation feel any sense of entitlement. But I think I would like to hear Kimar respond to the words of these elders here in front of him, because
You don't mind
Kimar.
if I could explain something, Maxine? You said that people should be grounded in some philosophy. Well, these politicians, especially when the Barbadians Labour Party, they have a philosophy. I
That's
want
true
2
too.
terms to get my pension. They're
Okay.
grounded in that. That is all they're interested in. You know what I mean? So don't fool yourself. They got a goal. They got a focus on that pension.
I call that the vulgarization of the concept of philosophy. But anyhow, it is a philosophy.
Yeah.
Remember my words,
But,
Caswell.
Kimar is here. I know that Mr. Murray had wanted to discuss. There's another piece of what he wanted to discuss, but we might have to. I will talk with him. Let's see what happens tonight.
We can postpone it. I don't mind if this discussion is fruitful and flowing. Let's
Yes,
say it's not urgent.
we're just gonna flow with this tonight because but
Be- be-
Kimar, welcome. Good to see you.
before you get to Kimar,
Yes.
just let me say that one piece more about Oina. I remember every day when I see how this government performed. 2 things. He had a dictum. He would say, "You must always aim for clarity of purpose and certainty of outcome. Whatever you do, clarity of purpose and a certainty of outcome." And he would often have to throw back. People said, "Go back and bring more information." When I see what comes to legislation, the sloppy work done, it turns it pains my stomach, it hurts my heart to see what the Barbados Labour Party was concerned. And secondly, the last thing before I defer to Kimar is that when the elitism starts to shine through, you'd often say it to us, I don't have a veranda. I don't have a veranda. I don't have a veranda cabinet. This cabinet is not a veranda cabinet where you bring attitudes and things that you display on people's veranda on Sunday at cattle wash or try and decide whatever. And he also push people back with that kind of approach or one because of his groundings, like Maxine said, salt of the earth. Okay, Kimar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Murray. Kimar, good night. Good to see you. You were out there yesterday morning with all of us to see the leader of opposition make that walk into Parliament. What were your thoughts as you see him go in?
Yes, well, good night to everyone on the show. Good night to you, Marcia. Good night to Maxine, Caswell, and good night to you, Mr. Murray, and good night to the members of the loyal opposition. Always happy to be here. Yesterday, I felt so happy and so proud to see Mr. Thorne. Uh, I was happy to see Mr. Thorne walk across the yard, and to the loud cheer and applause from members of the loyal opposition, his supporters. And I am glad he came out. He embraced us all. He spoke to us, and the speech that he gave was very empowering. And he mentioned God, unlike some people that we know who want to take him out of everything. He included him in his work, and he gave a very uplifting message which spoke to the masses. It doesn't matter which class you come from. It doesn't matter which street you come from, which lane you come from, Chapman Lane, Sandy Lane. Anybody could have been moved by Ralph Thorne's words yesterday. I certainly was. And I would just briefly say I want to encourage Mr. Thorne to serve. And if he keeps in line with the words that he gave us, we could have a very fine gentleman leading in Barbados very soon, sooner rather than later, because the way he started off in Parliament, I believe there's going to be a snap election sometime soon to stop Mr. Thorne from gaining momentum, because he's gaining momentum very quickly, and he's not. I used to say the government is not treating Mr. Thorne like any old hazard and anything. You know, they're sitting up and they're definitely looking on. Their hearts are burning right now, and I just want to encourage the members on the loyal opposition to continue to support him. As his journey will be tough, but as he said, he's in there alone, but he's not lonely because we're there with him every step of the way.
Yes, Timar. Actually, I was saying tonight, sharing with the viewers the concept that, we are not going to stop, because, we now have, there's a leader of opposition in Parliament. This is something that we have talked about on the show. The idea was discussed on the show by our panelists. But we're not going to stop, because we believe that there are three arms of opposition. There's a leader of opposition, then you have the opposition senators, you have the people, right? The people, that's why he says he's there alone, but he's not lonely. The people of Barbados, we will continue to be that opposition. Can you, comment on that concept?
Well, officially, no. There's a social hierarchy, in that there's the opposition leader, who is the officially recognized person via the law. Then there are the opposition senators, and then there's the people. Usually, and I saw Mr. Thorne making and as the newspaper said, he made a pivot over to the DLP, and he expressed his interest in joining a party and being able to do his work from within the walls of a party. So that, in his estimation, would give him some strength and support, and the mass base of an organization would definitely help him in his mission. So the more people we gather, Marcia, like us here on the show, and we continually get persons to come out and march, we get persons to come to Roadside Parliament on Sunday, we get persons to continuously come on the show and contribute, the more persons we have from all spectrums of Barbados. Whereas my belief that any group or any person who now opposes the policy of the government, we should be about unity. And that unity first starts by recognizing that Ralph Thorne is now the official leader of opposition of Barbados, and we should all support him. Then second in line is support his senators, and then none of us have any seats None of us have any special appointment. None of us sit anywhere of influence really. So we should really put all egos aside, all personalities aside, and let everyone who have a common goal right now, and that is to save Barbados, let us unite and move forward. Uh, like yesterday, because Barbados needs persons to step up, and we should all rally around the way that the Lord is shaping it by encouraging Mr. Thorne to cross the floor and to put structures in place.
Yeah.
Marcy, I have to reconfigure your trade thing approach, and I see it. I couldn't sit here as a member of a party that's 68 years old and ignore it. To my mind, the opposition is made up of the Senate and the House, and that's one element. Um, so in that sense, I wouldn't separate the Senate, because what they will do, they represent a parliamentary group. And so that is one. The second, of course, is we have an ongoing two-party situation. And so in that sense, that is another element. And of course, then you have the people. So my triangular thing will be configured slightly different from yours.
Yeah. Well, that second then would be all the parties in Barbados, because the DLP,
Provided that they're active, yes, of course.
yeah, once you're active, the DLP as it stands does not have a seat. So I would put them all, in one category. And in my mind, when I talk about the people of Barbados, but thanks for the clarity. But in my
No,
mind,
because we're talking about a political system. So a political system,
political system,
that is very much a reality. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
all the parties should be active. The third parties, the DLP, all parties should be active. But definitely, the citizens it's very, very important that the citizens are active. Kimar, let me ask you, what you talk about supporting the opposition, that the formal opposition. In what ways can we do that? People are listening. We have over 1,136 persons listening. In what ways do you suggest that they can support? And I'm going to, you will answer, and then I'm going to put this out to the others as well. Go ahead, Kimar.
Well, Mr. Thorne is definitely going to need some assistance. So persons who have requisite skills could contribute information to his research pool. You could contribute real-time information in terms of emailing him, sending in some WhatsApp with vital information that he may need. There are groups and various organizations that we all are members of. We could start by trying to get our groups and organizations to have an audience with the opposition leader, and to really I guess he knows Barbados, but to reintroduce, allow him to reintroduce himself in his new role as opposition leader, and seek audience with him. I remember there was the Rubbing Shoulders program with the government, and they toured all around Barbados, met with various interest groups, all types of groups, all stratospheres of society. So he's only one person, so we should rally around him in terms of being able to mobilize Barbadians to understand what has happened in this country. Because quite a few of us are still very ignorant as to what really happened when Mr. Thorne left the Barbados Labour Party and crossed the floor. Right. So now is the time, and hoping that we could get Mr. Thorne on the Marseille show at some point in time to address the roadside parliament and to address the members of, hear my words, of his loyal opposition in us, because we all support him. I support him. Marseille, know you support him as well. We all are giving our full support to him. So, as Pastor Ferdinand usually does, he says, I'm extending an invitation I am personally, if Mr. Thorne is listening, we're asking, if you would be interested in coming on the Marseille show, let the members of the loyal opposition have a upfront conversation as to how we, the people, see opposition politics in this day and age. Maybe give him some insights as to how it has changed, and maybe offer him and to hear his perspective as well as to what vision or what he can do to help save this country from the morass that is in right now.
Yeah. Somebody's asking a question here, Kimar. Would a by-election possibly knock Mr. Thorne off his perch?
I would say no. Well, this is the possible scenarios right now. If there is any by-election likely, let me just say it may be in St. Michael Northwest or St. Michael East, right? If there's a by-election in any seat really, there's a high chance that a person from the opposition can win that seat, and then that will give Ralph Thorne some strength as to adding another seat to his one in the House of Parliament, plus anybody else who may cross, right?
I don't think that is what Mervyn is asking. He's asking for education here, and because what people are saying is that, oh, there should be a by-election, and people are coming up with that nonsense. Right? So he's asking for by-election to knock Mr. Thorne off his perch. No, Mr. Thorne is not required to resign his seat and seek a new mandate. Under our system of government or governance, when you are elected by a constituency, you're not elected to a party. You're elected as an individual. So you put your confidence in the Barbers, the Party of Democrat, the Party, whatever. But the Democrat Labour Party does not sit in Parliament. It is the people who sit together and say, well, okay, we are members of the Barbers Labour Party. Our Constitution does not speak to parties. Glyne said earlier today that you have 30 elections on the general election day. So he will be elected for 5 years, or until the Prime Minister closes the dissolved Parliament. So Ralph will be a puppet to resign and then going to seek a mandate. Nobody does that. There's some countries where that happens, where if you want to leave the party, you have to resign. And I spoke the last time about how Eric Williams used to accomplish it, when he used to make everybody sign a resignation and dated it and give it to him. If you misbehave and he don't like what you did, he would then put a date on it and give it to the speaker. But we have no such thing.
But Caswell, there's another scenario
guys, all the comments really quickly so that we can get back to Kimar, because he hasn't had a lot of time.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, if Kimar put another scenario, so you may want to speak to that, Kimar, because Caswell is right, but you also raised another scenario, which I hope you would elaborate on, when you mentioned 2 different constituencies other than Christchurch South.
Right. So just hold that, Kimar. Let Mr. Murray make a comment on.
I want to deal with the issue of giving support to Mr. Thorne. I suggest that we go. Why not have the Lord Officer go to his constituency have a meeting? I'm 45 because I know there are some people really knocking around with the truth, and I think that once he is now moved, it means that the emphasis is going to be on to try to unseat him even greater. So you might need to go and give him a fortification, give him more support, let the people outside of Christchurch South know how the rest of America thinks someone to see him and that they have a good man as a representative, help to keep him there. Therefore, trying to stave off any assault on his presence and his durability in that regard. And in addition, he's also going to need support, financial support and whatnot. A party in opposition is not an easy party. I know the BIP between 1986 and 94, when you'll have to couldn't pay the LIS for the staff, couldn't pay the water bill, couldn't pay the light bill, had to send around a hat, and that's when they contribute. So I have a lot of sympathy for what the DLP has been going through, and that is what moved on Arthur to institute this subvention. So he said that both parties have done a lot to develop Barbados along with the public service and whatnot. And therefore, they should not have to struggle to keep democracy alive on the taxpayers' budget, and therefore there should be a contribution from the taxpayers to keep these parties going under certain conditions. But there was no law, like I say, it's just if the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance wanted to give the DLP her feet on, she easily could. There was nothing to stop her. But again, it was to squeeze, to minimize the chance of Mr. Atherley, Bishop Atherley digging in and having a durable presence in the system. So those are the kind of realistic factors. Yeah, go ahead, Jasmine.
Glenn, you recall that when ONAFA instituted this subvention to the parties, it was $150 for each party that was represented in the House.
150,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was never a situation where if there's only one party that you will get all $250,000.
No.
They were only supposed to get one, but that's what they did with Atherley.
I know.
Barbados, they were party thing, kept both. One should have gone back to the Parliament because there was no provision for giving it to two, giving a fellow two, but they took two, and squeezed Bishop Atherley, and I'm telling you, he pulled his pocket.
I know.
I can assure you that he did.
I know that, yeah.
To keep the opposition office and keep his business going. So it was not he was not there. So coroning money, I worked with him. I knew that. You see, but the Barbados Labour Party did something akin to misappropriation. I'm not saying misappropriation, but it's close enough to. It was only intended to be a $150,000 thing, paid in two tranches.
But Catherine,
they took both.
Catherine, one quick last sentence. When that was proposed at the Barbados Labour Party cabinet, there were people who objected, saying, "No, don't get it damn money, man, let them wait, man." I said, "No, the Barbados Labour Party will not always be in government, and you want to ensure that when you're in office, your party can survive and play its role in democracy." And by 2008, it came true, and then they had 10 years. Had it been for they could not survive, or they would have to struggle again as they did before. So it really is something that the public has to say as a contribution to the public good and the public success.
Yeah, very good point. Thank you for that. Kimar, let's go back to the scenario, Miss McLean, with the two constituencies. Can you explain that a little bit more?
There's a heightened sense of a by-election happening in St. Michael Northwest, where Nero is sitting. If you remember, when the Nero scenario first came to public knowledge, Nero had two lawyers. And you heard the video with the Prime Minister saying that if Michael Lashley represents Nero, that he can't get a cent from the Barbados Labour Party. Basically, they will not be paying him. And she asked, when is the last time Ralph represent a criminal case? Right? I heard that video. I'm sure the public heard it as well. However, Michael Ashley did end up representing Nero. So we don't know if Mr. Lashley will be paid. If the Barbados Labour Party has anything to do with it. However, Mr. Thorne absenting himself from public appearances as it relates to representation of Nero. Now, based off the rumors that we've been hearing, we were hearing that Mr. Rowe was supposed to cross the floor to join Mr. Thorne on the opposition benches. That proved to be just rumors.
He denied it.
Right. However, there's still the possibility that his court case could go left. He could be found guilty and face a heavy fine or face jail time for the crime that he's accused of. So we don't know the possibilities of the case. And therefore, if he's found guilty, then he still has to resign from the seat. And there's a by-election. Now, I don't want to discuss the case really, because you're not supposed to discuss matters that are in front of the court, subjudicate. But what I will say here is that I've never heard of an accused being given 2 court dates. Right? He was the first person I ever heard got 2 court dates. Right? And this was the fastest time I've ever seen a case flowing through the court system in Barbados.
Really?
Right? So we don't know. We don't know
What
the possibilities.
What would inquest into the death?
Yeah.
You forgot,
Yes.
you forgot that one? That was record speed for that kind of.
That's the fastest inquest. But they got some people who died 10 years ago and they get them inquest yet.
Right. Okay. Sorry, Kimar, but I had to keep the record straight.
Yeah. Well,
Yes, well, that was the fastest record time I've ever seen that, right? So we don't know what may. I wish him the best, right? I wish him the best, but what I'm saying is we don't know what could happen. So very soon, here we have Ryan Walters, who is a member of the Senate, and who contested the same constituency that Nero is in last time. Here's Mr. Thorne introducing Mr. Walters as a senator. So if there's a possibility of a by-election, I don't see the Barbados Liberal Party bringing a candidate to beat Mr. Walters, right?
I hope they do.
So I see that.
I hope they do. Because I will go and canvass for them.
Kimar finish there, Mr. Franklin. Let Kimar go ahead. Kimar, finish, please.
Yeah. Right. So there are some political possibilities there. Over in St. Michael East, there have been heavy rumors that the assistance usually offered to the member of parliament for that constituency, that they have somebody else canvassing in the seat, right? So the same way how Mr. Thorne was treated, and that they're putting somebody in the seat to canvass, the same thing is happening up in St. Michael East, where Trevor Prescott is at. And y'all remember he coming in the parliament and saying that he's not going anywhere, and he got dead in the seat, and nobody can't force him. Y'all remember that, right? He did a whole salvo in the parliament. I remember Glenn Clark saying the same thing as well, but look where Glenn Clark is. And I will say what I will say about Glenn Clark, all due respect. For a man who's supposed to be the ambassador to Canada, he's in Barbados more often than he's in Canada. Right? I will say that. But back on to St. Michael East. The same allegation Mr. Thorne put forward. But so we don't know if Mr. Prescott will jump in saying that Mr. Thorne could give him some motivation to jump, right? But I guess being the spokesperson for reparations is very lucrative, and he may not want to give that up to come and be a backbencher and suffer reduced pay and reduced increments or whatever. But this, as I said, the same treatment Mr. Thorne was getting that caused him to leave, the same exact thing about putting other persons that the MP may not endorse to canvass in the seat. Well, they're still there, so we need to look out for those 2 possibilities.
Wow.
There's also, I think you also have to keep your eye on St. Philip North. Remember in that same conversation.
That's Dr. Brown? Dr. Brown?
Yeah. You forget in that same conversation where they talk Ralph as Mr. Thorne as a legal representative against Michael Lassie, etc. There was also a mention of a visit made by Dr. Brown, her being the friend of Nero. And if you read today's paper, there's a story in today's or yesterday's Barbados Today. Sorry, in which it's the headline is sitting on the fence, in which they asked both Sonia, Dr. Brown and Mr. Prescott as to whether they would cross with Mr. Thorne. And one said all things are possible, and everybody says that's not exciting yet, but anything can happen. So you never know what there's some other factors there that play out in that whole matrix that should make it very, very, very interesting. So it can be even more than one. But cause remember, he said Dr. Mona, what if she goes? You want me publicly endorse Michael Lashley? Remember that? You want me publicly endorse Michael Lashley against her? Remember that's right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you have to make that in account. You have to factor that in also.
Yeah, well, it's 5 minutes to 10, and there's one issue that we really need to talk about. We've probably started and finish it the next show, but we can't not talk about the statement that came out from the DLP yesterday evening. I see Miss McLean dropping her head, but it's part of what it's something that this
It's
came
not
out.
to say not to talk about it, you know. I just
I
okay,
know,
but
I know, but what we stick on the side of truth. We're not, that's the thing. Mr. Franklin, let me go to you on this one. Can you give it's real quick comments, guys, on it,
I
on that
could
statement?
I could not believe a statement like that would come from a politician. Look, Ralph Thorne threw out his hands to the Democratic Labour Party and said he's willing to join the party, and he said, I'm not being a hypocrite. He preferred to work within the party. And then you slap him in the face like that. He is speaking for the Democratic Labour Party, and these senators are speaking for the Democratic Labour Party. It was not a knee-jerk statement because you can see it was written, because the level of that speech is not Blackett's normal verbiage. He could read well. So somebody wrote that speech. And that means there was some sort of consultation and collaboration among that and thing. And not a single soul didn't say, what are you doing? What nonsense you doing? That, I think they're afraid because now they would lose their standing, because Ralph know if he joins the party, automatically he will become the political leader. The political leader of a political party is the person who does the talking for the party. We have a situation now where the Democratic Labour Party does not have a political leader, and the president has filled the breach. That little he bent in and filled that little hole there was there. If Ralph comes, he will no longer have that prominence. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. I don't know. I don't want to attribute any motive to anybody. But it is a silly thing to do, especially when you have opposition, at least somebody to help you with the government. No. What I said the other night, and what I wanted going to confirm, and I was glad he confirmed for me, that Ralph taking that seat would have put $150,000 a year in the Democratic Labour Party to help them put a little quarter pay and stuff and pay the staff, and they would sacrifice that because of fear and stupidity. Because the opposition must be united to this government. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and you cannot have a political party so naive and so self-serving, self-centered, that they would want to destroy the opportunity to have an official spokesman or in the leader of the opposition amongst them. I do not believe that those fellas are politicians. Lord help them.
Yeah. I'm here trying to find the actual statement again, the written one, because I can't play.
While you look for it, I will comment, Marcia, as a member of the Democratic Labour Party. And while Caswell was speaking, are you looking at me very funny? See, Marcia looking at me very funny. No, yeah, you were looking at me.
No, not at all. I'm actually looking for the speech. Not at all. Not at all.
No, but in all seriousness, I was listening to a message that I shared with some of my colleagues this morning. And I was trying to remember exactly what I said, but I will paraphrase. And I said to them that I know that this issue will come up because I'm on this program, and I will not hesitate to speak to it. I am not in the habit of commenting on matters that I consider internal, but that was a statement made by the General Secretary of the Democratic Labour Party, and the media carried it as a position of the Democratic Labour Party. Based on the feedback that I got from a cross-section of what I would use the term rank and file of the party in Barbados and out of Barbados. For example, within a 15-minute space of time this morning, I had about 6 messages or calls from Barbadians overseas, distressed by it. And I want to say, I am taking the liberty, therefore, to say that as far as I interpreted the many calls and comments up to this evening, before I turned on my computer, people were still messaging me or whatever. That statement does not accord with the feelings or the wishes of the majority of the persons. The reality is, as with any other organization, persons are selected to make decisions and so on behalf of an institution, but sometimes they get it wrong. And I think this is one that has been gotten very wrong. If that, Glyne, correct my English if it is not correct.
Perfectly correct.
I was distressed. I got a call from a very good friend of mine who came home in 2007 with 10 members of her family and friends to campaign in an effort to get the Democratic Labour Party back in office. And she called me and she said, I am in my bed here with a headache because I just got a call from John Brown, let me say, who shared this, and I cannot believe it. I do not understand the thinking. As I said, these are persons, I presume that it emanated from the executive council of the party, and it would have been my personal feeling. It contradicted the position of the president when he spoke at a branch meeting in St. John. I don't know what happened between Sunday and when that statement was issued. But it is unfortunate that nobody could see the insanity of it. I am speaking very frankly, because at the end of the day, people make mistakes, and I trust that those mistakes had been identified by the persons who made them. It made absolutely no sense. None. Because at the end of the day, Barbadians are sitting there. I mean, and this is where, you remember I made a comment earlier about sacrifice and vision and philosophy and all of those things.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is because when I sit here, it's not about me. It is not about me. It is about my commitment to making a contribution to make Barbados better.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I would say. So and normally I would say nothing, but as I said, because so many people have sent me messages, and as I shared with, and I will say this openly, as I shared with the General Secretary this morning, because the comments were coming, and as they were coming, I was forwarding them to him. And as I said to him, sadly, I have to do this, but I'm sharing these, but none of them have been positive. And so far, I can say that it is unfortunate, and I really think that people would have communicated as individual members to Mr. Thorne their feelings. And all I would say again was, Mr. President, Mr. General Secretary, members of the Executive Council of the Democratic Labour Party who were part of that process, you were wrong in the eyes of many people, including members of the party, supporters of the party, and members of the general public in Barbados.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. McLean. Mr. Murray, can I hear from you on that?
Yeah, sure. I can't believe my eyes or my ears. Remember earlier I said in my earlier presentation that you could be bright by and shining? That's a classic example of bright and shining. It made absolutely no sense. The people of Barbados want an opposition. They want to see the DLP restored and resuscitated, revived, etc. Here is a golden opportunity to give you a presence, a voice, a status. When a man of stature, a ready-made leader, so to speak, a man who held out his hand to the party when he got State House, when he said, and he said first he said that he had applied, that he was waiting for him to go through the process. Just like he refused to comment on his move from the party, from the BLP, until he was actually sworn in. So he believes in doing things the proper, decent there. And for some persons, I think it's all about ego. It's people's ego are bruised, and they have their own personal ambitions and aspirations, and they think that, like Caswell said, if they're sidelined, that the end of it means that you can go and start to work hard again. Work hard. You said they have you from their side, but for them to refuse to suppress their own personal ego and ambitions for the overall good of the party and for Barbados.
And for the
I'm
country.
not there. I'm not a DLP supporter. I'm not any part. I'm not a party supporter. So I want what is best for Barbados.
Correct.
I've lived to see Barbados come to a good standing, and sad to say is slipping badly. It's slipping bad. I want to see that restored with faith and confidence. We are we are thinking for ourselves and doing what we want, not what the other dictates or what somebody wants you to do. I think we've lost that. And I think that the DIP had an ample chance, a golden chance to do something. Roles could have been found for other people after, if and when Mr. Thorne becomes a leader, and make use of that for the party. But to do that, it was embarrassing. It really, really embarrassing to say that some of the people I know in that party, as individuals whom I admire, I thought I had more sense. They really got it. They let me know. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah. Okay. Kimar, quickly, can you give your comment on it before we close?
Well, I gonna be very measured in what I say here because they will have opinion based off my experiences, which have not been the best coming up. So, in order to save myself from saying something that I may regret, my long story short is that opinion is the opinion of maybe one man or two men who may feel bruised by the fact that they may have been left out to the Senate. Simple fact. Realistically, at this time, the party is in need. The party could benefit from an amalgamation with Mr. Thorne. So there's no reason why there should be any discussion about why Mr. Thorne should not be allowed back into the Democratic Labour Party. After all, the same person that may be blocking him, Mr. Thorne was a member long before you. Now has a longer history with the party. So the same way how how other persons join the party and nobody asked them anything or nobody held them to ransom, there should be no reason why Mr. Thorne should not be allowed to join the party and based off the constitution of the party, be allowed to become the political leader and appoint senators as he wish. Because it's his choice as the man with the seat. Right? And it is my firm opinion. If there can be no legit reason put forward, or if Mr. Thorne's application is blocked in any way, without any substantial reason, well, all I can say is somebody can go and say goodbye to the DLP. And I'm more sure it will not be Mr. Thorne.
Yeah.
And I will end on that point.
Yeah, thanks, Kimar. Well, it's 10:08 and oh boy, it's getting all exciting, but we have to close. And with Sunday, we have an important thing is happening Sunday, Ms. McLean, the motorcade and the roadside parliament. And because we believe that we're not going to just wait on them, they said that it's gone, the cyber crime bill is going to a special committee, parliamentary committee. But we want to keep that education going throughout the communities. And I promised everybody that we would have had the route, and I forgot to ask her it just before the show started. But I promise you it's going to come up on Friday. We will put up the route because as we go to the communities, Ms. McLean, we want to continue to educate Barbadians on this bill. And so that they would, our aim is that they go and remove those clauses or those sections of the bill or do some overhaul of that bill. So what do you say to Barbadians about coming out to the motorcade and the roadside parliament this Sunday February 18th, Ms. McLean?
No, I think Barbadians, this is an important way of staying abreast of what is happening in the country. As you would notice, what has happened coming out of the Marcia Week show and all the activities that flow from that has been a level of public education that we have not seen around here in a long time. It is done by a set of people who are not partisan in their outlook, but are concerned about keeping Barbadians in the know and ensuring that they understand what is important in terms of protecting their own rights. So it is necessary to come out here, share, and continue to grow as citizens.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. McLean. Mr. Murray, are you coming out on Sunday to the motorcade? And what do you say to Barbadians about coming out to the motorcade and roadside parliament? We're going to still be pushing against this cyber crime bill.
I think it's an excellent idea. The this group has done tremendous work in Barbados. Again, I go back to believe it or not, you know that the original pressure group used to have meetings at the Sarah Westburn Plaza. They had many meetings there. And that so
Wow.
yeah, I mean, history is repeating itself. Because, and I am not surprised because I always envisage a society as a living organism, which, if it's under threat, it always seeks to revive itself, rebound, defend itself, because it wants to live and thrive like a lizard, a cat, a human being. Once it is threatened, and I think therefore what is happening is this is organically coming out of society. The last time it came at a time when Barbadians had grown tired of lawyer politics, as they called it, and they were talking about grassroots politicians. And this one is coming from grassroots of Barbados in a way that nothing before has happened. Like I said, it has gone to higher heights and a greater extent than the original group. I mean, Maxine's brother did a tremendous job in educating Barbadians about utility rates and economic summit and the economy and whatnot. But this one is more substantial. And like I said, the people are voting with their feet, and it's the wisdom of crowds at work. And I wish it greater, and I do whatever I can to make sure goes even further, it sustains itself and get even more successful and powerful.
Yes, thank you so much. Sunday would be a great time. Kimar, what you know about the food that will be served there? What kind of food happening there, Kimar?
Well, we'll be having some small type snackets, maybe some hot dogs, fish cakes, popcorn, and special grilled barbecue pigtails.
Oh wow.
uh, yeah. So
Yes,
come for your barbecue pigtails on Sunday.
yes. And somebody here is saying, pressure, keep the pressure on. So yes, we're going to eat the food, but we know why we're doing this. We want to make the government realize that listen, we're not going to just wait on you, right? We're not going to wait on you, but we're going to be pushing. So we'll be talking about the cyber bill, and people are going to hear your voice, Kimar, in their homes. As we're on the truck. Mr. Franklin, what can you say to Barbadians tonight about coming out on Sunday? I know you'll be there.
No, I have every intention of being there because I am not taking my foot off the accelerator now. I think
Right.
our efforts must be there to complement Mr. Thorne's efforts because we have a little opposition and we must support him in his views in his positions to because we have one goal and that is to get this government out of office because it has shown it has no respect for the people of this country. So I would want to see as many people turn up at this march. Well, we call it a march, even by legislation, because you have a march with vehicles. That's according to public order act. It's still referred to as a march. But we will have this, and we have one goal in mind to continue doing what we did. We are not going to stop now because Ralph is there. We will complement him. We will be here to help him, and I will tell you now. Um, if he continues the way he started, I will be there to support him all the way. He has been he- an excellent advocate in the court. I know he's been an excellent advocate in the house. His hands were tied because of party loyalties and the party whip. He has no such thing now, and he can support the efforts of the ordinary Barbadians. So come out and let this government see, because government responds to numbers. When they see the numbers, they pull back this bill and have now the jackass, I mean the horse before the cart. The behavior was such assery that I call it jackass. I mean horse. They now have the horse before the cart because they are doing what they should have done first. They're doing it now, but they're doing it. And that is because of this show, Marcia. So I take my hat to you. Because if we didn't have this show, the Barbadians would be the poor for it. So come out and you can see, the people in Barbados can see that they're disparaging remarks about us, but they're listening. So we aren't going to stop talking, especially while they're listening. So good night all. We will see you on Friday, but I will also want to see you on Sunday.
Yes, yes. Friday first and then Sunday. Okay. Good night, everybody. No,
Right.
no.
Marcia, don't forget I'm on tomorrow, 7 alternate views.
Tomorrow at
Who's
7
on with you?
o'clock,
Who's on with you
alternate
tomorrow?
news.
Anybody? A guest
I,
or?
yes, I have Barbados cricketer Chad Williams, and we'll be discussing cricket and the contribution to Barbados and the economy.
Wow, awesome. And the one on film, you could see that the government, they're watching your stuff because they now are doing something similar. So you're a trailblazer. That's alternate views tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Chad Williams, the cricketer, will be on, and we're looking at cricket and the economy and how it can benefit the economy. Very good job, Kimar. And so, folks, no anthem tonight. We'll do that. Set up to do that for you again on Friday. God bless you all and have a good night. Prepare for
Good night,
Sunday.
everybody.
Get
Good night.
everything
Good
ready
night.
for Sunday. Sunday, all roads lead to St. John. That motorcade. Call your friends and carpool. Get people in the car. Get your snacks together. And get your beverages and your water, and let us go down the road. And I would say walk with, if you have a folding chair. If you have a folding chair, walk with your folding chair. All right? If you have one. Okay? God bless you all. And Sunday, bring your pot cover and spoon. Pot
Hey.
cover and spoon. Everybody, pot cover and spoon. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Good night. Good night.
Good
Bye.
night. Good night.